There is a particular kind of quiet that settles in the spaces people leave behind. It's the silence after a door has closed for the final time, the hollow echo in a room that once held laughter. It is the feeling of scrolling through a phone, past names that were once a daily conversation, now monuments to a connection that has faded like a photograph left in the sun. We see it in nature, a single leaf letting go of its branch, surrendering to the wind, or a wave cresting, beautiful and powerful for a moment, before dissolving back into the ocean. We sense this truth everywhere, yet when it touches our own lives, when a friend drifts away, or a cherished relationship ends, the quiet it leaves behind can feel deafening. It brings a deep and unsettling question, a question that hums beneath the surface of our busy, modern lives. Why do people come and go? We live in an age of unprecedented connection, our lives woven together by invisible threads of technology, yet we often feel profoundly alone. We are told to build, to achieve, to hold on, to secure our happiness by gathering things and people and moments. We build our lives like fortresses, hoping to keep out the inevitable winds of change, but the walls are made of sand. The job we anchor our identity to can disappear. The youth and vitality we take for granted will soften with time. The people we believe are permanent fixtures in the landscape of our lives can and do walk a different path. And in this desperate grasping, this struggle against the natural flow of existence, we find the roots of a deep and pervasive anxiety. We suffer, not because things change, but because we expect them to be permanent. But what if there was another way to see? What if the pain of loss is not a punishment, but an invitation to look deeper? There is an ancient path, a form of wisdom that has addressed this very question for over 2,500 years. It does not offer a magic spell to stop the river from flowing or to prevent the leaves from falling. It offers something far more powerful, a map of the human heart and a set of tools to navigate the currents of life with grace and resilience. It suggests that the solution to our suffering is not found by changing the world outside, but by transforming the world within. This is a journey to understand the profound laws of cause and effect, of connection and impermanence. It is a path to discovering a peace that does not depend on who stays or who goes, a quiet strength that resides not in holding on, but in the wisdom of letting go. To truly understand the comings and goings of people in our lives, our journey must begin not with the complexities of human connection, but with a far simpler, more fundamental truth. It is a truth that underpins every star in the cosmos, every mountain on earth, every thought that flickers through our mind. In the ancient Pali language, this truth is called Anicca, and it translates to impermanence. It is the first, and perhaps most profound, lesson on the nature of reality. Think of a river. You can stand on its bank today and return to the same spot tomorrow, but you are never, ever looking at the same river. The water that flows past you in this moment is gone in the next, replaced by new water, ever flowing, ever changing. The river has a name, a form, a direction, but it is not a static thing. It is a process. This is the nature of all existence. Everything we perceive as solid and stable is, in fact, a process in constant, relentless motion. The mountain appears to be a symbol of permanence, yet wind and rain are ceaselessly wearing it down, grain by grain. The sun seems eternal in our sky, but it is a vast nuclear furnace, consuming its own fuel, and one day, it too will cease to shine. This is true on the intimate scale of our own bodies. The person you are now is not the person you were 7 years ago. at least on a cellular level. Skin, bone, blood, all are in a state of constant renewal and decay. And what of our inner world? Our thoughts, our feelings, our moods? They are even more fluid than the river. A feeling of joy arises. It fills us for a time, and then it passes. A wave of sadness washes over us. It feels all-consuming, and yet it too recedes. A brilliant idea sparks in the mind, only to be replaced by a distraction a moment later. Nothing is exempt from this universal law. To be born is to be subject to change, to decay, and to end. Now, this teaching of impermanence can, at first, sound pessimistic, even terrifying. It seems to pull the rug out from under everything we hold dear. If nothing lasts, what is the point? If everyone we love will one day be gone, why open our hearts to the inevitable pain? This is a natural reaction, but it stems from a fundamental misunderstanding. The Buddha taught that change itself is not the cause of our suffering. The river flowing is not the problem. The suffering, the deep, emotional pain we experience, which is called dukkha, arises from one thing only: our resistance to the flow. It comes from our desperate attempt to build a dam in the middle of the river. We try to hold onto the water, to grasp it in our fists, but the tighter we squeeze, the more it slips through our fingers. This is the very essence of human anguish. We fall in love not just with a person, but with a snapshot of that person in time. We cherish the way they made us feel on a particular day, the sound of their laugh in a specific moment, the comfort of their presence during a difficult period. We build a museum in our minds to that single moment, and then we feel betrayed when the living, breathing, ever-changing person in front of us continues to evolve, to grow, sometimes in directions that lead them away from us. We cling to our youth, our health, our status, as if they are possessions, and we feel robbed when they inevitably begin to change. The teaching of Anicca is not telling us that our love or our joy is meaningless. It is telling us that they are precious precisely because they are fleeting. The problem is not the river, but our expectation that it should be a stagnant pond for our own comfort. There is a powerful story that illustrates this truth with heartbreaking clarity. It is the story of a woman named Kisa Gotami. She lived a happy life until her young son, her only child, fell ill and died. Consumed by a grief so powerful it bordered on madness, she refused to accept his death. She clutched the small, cold body to her chest and wandered from house to house, begging for a medicine that could bring him back to life. Some people turned away from her, others mocked her, some looked upon her with pity. Finally, a wise man saw her profound suffering and, instead of dismissing her, offered her a piece of advice. He told her, "There is only one thing that can help your son. You must go into the village and bring me back a single mustard seed, but it must be taken from a house where no one has ever lost a child, a spouse, a parent, or a friend, filled with a desperate hope." Kisa Gotami began her quest. She went to the first house, her dead son still in her arms. "I need a mustard seed," she said. "The Buddha sent me, but only from a house that has never known death." The woman of the house looked at her with kind, sad eyes. "You can have as many mustard seeds as you like," she said, "but in this house, we have known many deaths. I lost my father just last year." Kisa Gotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was always the same. "We can give you the seed, but our beloved daughter was taken from us. We can give you the seed, but my husband died in the fields. The living are few, but the dead are many." She went to every single home in the village, and she could not find one that had been untouched by loss. As the sun began to set, The truth slowly dawned on her, not as a harsh intellectual concept, but as a deep, embodied understanding. She looked down at the child in her arms, her fierce, desperate grip beginning to soften. She realized that the fate of her son was not a unique tragedy. It was the shared, universal experience of all human beings. Her grief was not hers alone, it was the grief of the world. In that moment of profound realization, she gently carried her son to the charnel ground and let him go. The mustard seed was not the cure for her son. The search for the mustard seed was the cure for her. It allowed her to see the truth of Anicca, the truth of impermanence and universal loss. Our own lives are a version of Kisa Gautami's search. When a relationship ends, we are, in a sense, searching for that magical house untouched by change. We ask the universe, why me? Why this relationship? Why did it have to end? We believe our pain is a unique affliction, a special punishment, but the wisdom of impermanence, like the villagers' responses to Kisa Gautami, gently shows us that no house is immune. No relationship is exempt from the law of change. Understanding this is not meant to make us callous or resigned. On the contrary, it is the doorway to true appreciation and profound freedom. When you know that every moment is fleeting, that moment becomes infinitely precious. You listen differently to a friend's story. You taste your food with more attention. You watch a sunset, not as something to be captured on a camera, but as a unique, unrepeatable performance of light and color that you are privileged to witness. It shifts our entire orientation from one of acquisition to one of gratitude. We stop trying to own the people in our lives and start simply appreciating the gift of their presence, for however long their river flows alongside ours. To love someone, then, in the light of Anicca, is to love the river that they are. It is to celebrate their flow, to honor their changes, even when those changes carry them to a different sea. It is to be grateful for the time you shared on the riverbank, for the reflections you saw in their water, without demanding that they stop flowing for you. This is a love born not of clinging, but of wisdom and freedom. It replaces the anxiety of possession with the deep, quiet joy of connection. So we see that everything is a flow, a constant dance of arising and passing away. But is this dance random? Is it pure chaos? Or are there principles, laws, that govern the way this river flows, that influence why one person's path intersects with ours, and why it later diverges? The wisdom of the Buddha points to a profound order within the change, a law of cause and consequence that shapes our lives, our relationships, and our world. This law, known as karma, is where our journey takes us next. If the truth of impermanence is the river of existence, then the law of karma is the current that guides its flow. It is the invisible force that carves the riverbed, that determines the twists and turns, the rapids, and the placid pools of our lives. Perhaps no Eastern concept is as widely known in the West, and yet as deeply misunderstood as the law of karma. It has often been simplified into a cosmic system of reward and punishment, a sort of spiritual bookkeeping where good deeds earn points and bad deeds earn penalties. Or it is mistaken for fate, a rigid, unchangeable destiny that was written for us long ago. But the original teaching of the Buddha on karma is far more subtle, profound, and empowering than either of these interpretations. Karma, in its simplest form, just means action or deed. It is not an external judge watching over us, but a natural, impersonal law, as fundamental as gravity. The law simply states that every action, driven by intention, produces a result. Every cause has an effect, The seeds you plant are the fruits you will harvest. It is a teaching, not of fatalism, but of radical responsibility. The true heart of this teaching, the element that unlocks its transformative power, lies in a single, critical concept: intention. In the Pali language, this is called cetana. The Buddha himself declared, "It is intention, monks, that I call karma." Having intended, one acts through body, speech, and mind. This is the key. It is not just the action itself, but the mental state, the will, the intention behind the action that plants the most potent karmic seeds. Imagine you are walking down the street carrying a cup of coffee. You stumble, and the coffee spills onto a stranger, staining their coat. There was an action, and there was a result, a negative one. Now, imagine a different scenario. You see a person you dislike, and with a heart full of malice, you deliberately walk up and knock the coffee out of their hand, staining their coat. The external action is almost identical. A person's coat is stained. But the inner action, the intention, is worlds apart. The first was an accident, an unfortunate event with little karmic weight. The second was a seed of ill will, a deliberate choice to cause harm, and it plants a deep and bitter root in the mind of the one who acts. This is why self-awareness is so crucial. By becoming mindful of our thoughts and intentions before they manifest as words or deeds, we gain the ability to shape our own karmic future. When we interact with the people in our lives, this principle is constantly at play. A difficult truth can be spoken with the intention to wound, or with the intention to heal. A gift can be given out of genuine generosity, or with the hidden desire for something in return. The world sees only the speech or the gift, but the universe, the law of karma, responds to the intention that gave it birth. So how does this relate to the people who come and go in our lives? Karma operates across time. Our past actions, from this life, and even from previous ones, according to Buddhist cosmology, create the conditions and tendencies of our present. They are the reason we are born into a particular family, in a particular country, with a particular set of talents and psychological inclinations. Our past karma is the hand of cards we are dealt at the beginning of the game. It might explain a mysterious, magnetic pull we feel toward a certain person, or an inexplicable friction with another. These are the echoes of past actions, past connections ripening in the present moment. This is the cause that brings people together. But, and this is the most vital part, our past does not define our future. The hand we are dealt does not determine how we must play the game. Our freedom lies in the present moment. Every single thought, word, and deed we perform right now is a new karmic seed. We are constantly, in every moment, shaping the course of our own future. When two people meet, brought together by the currents of past karma, their shared future is not yet written. It is co-created, moment by moment, by the new karma they generate together. Do they act with kindness, patience, and honesty? They plant seeds of a healthy, enduring connection. Do they act with selfishness, anger, and deception? They plant the seeds of discord and separation. The relationship is not a static entity they possess, but a living, dynamic garden that they must tend to together. If the garden is neglected, if weeds of negative karma are allowed to grow, it is only natural that it will eventually wither. The separation is not a punishment, but the simple, impersonal fruition of the seeds that were sown. The most powerful illustration of this potential for transformation is the story of a man named Angulimala. His name literally meant necklace of fingers, for he was a terrifying murderer who stalked the forests and collected a finger from each of his victims, wearing them as a gruesome garland. He had generated an immense weight of negative karma. He was a force of pure destruction, and entire villages lived in fear of him. One day, the Buddha, aware of Angulimala's plight, calmly and deliberately walked into the forest where the murderer lived. Angulimala saw him and was overjoyed, thinking the Buddha would be an easy victim. He began to run, but a strange thing happened. Though the Buddha was only walking at a normal pace, Angulimala, running with all his might, could not catch up to him. Exhausted and bewildered, he shouted, "Stop, monk! Stop!" The Buddha, still walking, turned and replied with perfect calm, "I have stopped, Angulimala. It is you who have not stopped." This simple, profound statement struck Angulimala like a bolt of lightning. He understood that the Buddha had stopped creating the causes of suffering. He had stopped the cycle of violence and hatred within himself. It was Angulimala who was still running, still trapped on the wheel of his own horrific actions. In that instant, something broke within him. He threw down his weapons, bowed at the Buddha's feet, and begged to become a monk. He was accepted into the monastic order, and he dedicated himself to the path with the same ferocious intensity he had once dedicated to murder. His transformation was not easy. When he went into the villages for alms, people who recognized him threw stones and sticks at him, shouting insults. He would often return bloody and bruised. This was the ripening of his old, terrible karma. He had to experience the results of the suffering he had caused. But crucially, he no longer retaliated. He bore the abuse with patience and equanimity because he was no longer planting new seeds of hatred. His inner world was being transformed. Eventually, through his unwavering practice, Angulimala cleansed his mind of all defilements and became an arahant, a fully awakened being. The man who was once the embodiment of evil became a symbol of the profound possibility of redemption. His story teaches us that no one is defined by their past. We are not our mistakes. We are the heirs to our actions, but we are also the creators of our future. At any moment, we can choose to stop running. We can choose to plant a different kind of seed. The story of Angulimala shows the immense power of individual action to change one's own destiny. But his actions, and the Buddha's, did not happen in a vacuum. They were part of an intricate web of causes and conditions that brought them together in that forest clearing. How does one person's karma interact with another's? What is the vast, interconnected network in which these seeds of action are planted, sprout, and come to fruition? To understand the full picture of why people come and go, we must zoom out from the single thread of an individual's karma and learn to see the entire, magnificent tapestry of existence where every single thread is connected to and reflects every other thread. This brings us to one of the most profound teachings of the Buddha, the law of Paticcasamuppāda, or dependent origination. We have seen that our lives are a flowing river of impermanence, and that the currents of this river are guided by the law of karma, the law of action and intention. But no action, no seed of karma, ever sprouts in a void. It requires soil, water, sunlight, and air. In the same way, our karmic seeds can only ripen within a vast, interconnected ecosystem of conditions. To truly grasp why people enter and leave our lives, we must understand the nature of this ecosystem. In the Buddha's teaching, this is called Paticcasamuppāda, which translates as dependent origination or interconnected arising. It is the truth that nothing exists independently. Everything leans on everything else. Nothing has a separate, isolated self. To understand this, let us consider something as simple as a single sheet of paper in our hands. Where does it come from? We might say it comes from a factory, but the factory needed wood pulp, which came from trees. The trees needed soil, rain, and sunshine to grow. So the sun, the clouds, and the earth are all present in this sheet of paper. The logger who cut the tree is in the paper. His parents, his breakfast that morning, the education he received, all of those conditions are also, in some way, inside this sheet of paper. Then there are the people at the mill, the truck driver who transported it, the store clerk who sold it, the knowledge of engineering that built the machines, the language we use to even form the word paper. When we look deeply, we see that this single sheet of paper contains the entire universe. It cannot exist by itself. It can only interbe with everything else. This is the heart of dependent origination. This profound insight is often summarized in a simple, elegant formula. This is, because that is. This is not, because that is not. This arises, because that arises. This ceases, because that ceases. This isn't just a philosophical riddle. It is a precise description of reality. A flower arises because a seed, soil, water, and sun have come together. If any one of these conditions is absent, the flower does not arise. A sound arises because of a bell and a striker hitting it. Without the bell, or without the striker, there is no sound. The sound exists in dependence upon these conditions. Now, let us apply this powerful lens to our relationships. When we meet someone and form a connection, it can feel like a singular, magical event. But in reality, it is the coming together of an almost infinite number of preceding conditions. For you to even meet that person, your parents had to meet, and their parents, and so on, stretching back through countless generations. You both had to be born in a certain era, live in a certain place, and happen to be in the same location at the same exact time. Perhaps a mutual friend introduced you, so that friend and your entire history with them is a condition. Perhaps you shared an interest, so the history of that interest and all the people who nurtured it in you are also conditions. The meeting is not a starting point, but the result, the temporary culmination of numberless intersecting streams of causes and conditions. Then, for the relationship to be sustained, a whole new set of conditions must be present and continue to be present. There must be the condition of mutual communication, the condition of shared values, the condition of physical or emotional proximity, the condition of continued interest and effort. A relationship is not a static object that two people acquire and possess, like a piece of furniture. It is a phenomenon, a continuous process that is actively arising in every moment, completely dependent on a multitude of supporting conditions. It is a fire that requires constant fuel. If the fuel is no longer added, the fire naturally goes out. So, when a relationship ends, when a person leaves our life, what is actually happening from this perspective? It is not that a thing has broken. It is that the conditions necessary for the continued arising of that particular relational phenomenon have changed or ceased to be present. Perhaps one person's values have evolved and the condition of shared values has dissolved. Perhaps a new job has created distance and the condition of proximity has been removed. Perhaps the fuel of communication or kindness was no longer added by one or both people due to their own suffering or ignorance. The ending is not a singular, malicious event. It is a natural ceasing, which happens because the causes that sustained it are no longer there. It is like a cloud. A cloud forms when there is enough moisture, the right temperature, and the right atmospheric pressure. It is beautiful. It provides shade. It gives rain. Then, as the conditions change, as the wind blows and the temperature shifts, the cloud dissipates. It doesn't break or die. It simply transforms. We don't blame the cloud for disappearing. We understand it is the nature of clouds. Dependent origination allows us to see our relationships in the same way. The emotional liberation that comes from this understanding is immense. It is the end of blame. So much of our pain after a separation comes from the story we tell ourselves, a story of fault. It was my fault. If only I had done this differently. Or, it was their fault. How could they have done this to me? Blame requires a belief in a solid, independent self who made a singular wrong choice. But this teaching shows us there are no such isolated selves. We are all deeply conditioned. Our actions and choices arise out of the countless influences of our past, our biology, our society, and our own karmic tendencies. This doesn't mean we are not responsible for our actions. That is the domain of karma. But it frees us from the toxic, heavy burden of blame and resentment. Instead of "he left me," the understanding becomes the conditions supporting the continuation of our relationship cease to be. Instead of "I ruined it," it becomes my actions, born of my own conditions and suffering, contributed to the changing of the conditions. This is a language of compassionate, objective truth, not of self-flagellation or anger. It allows us to grieve the loss without being poisoned by the story of fault. There is a beautiful, ancient metaphor used to illustrate this vision of interconnectedness, known as Indra's net. Imagine a vast, cosmic net that stretches out infinitely in all directions. At every single knot in the net, there hangs a single, perfectly polished, multifaceted jewel. The net is so vast that the number of jewels is limitless. But here is the miracle. If you were to look closely at the surface of any one of these jewels, you would see reflected in it every other jewel in the entire net. And within each of those reflections, you would see the reflections of all the other jewels, and so on, in a dazzling, infinite regression. Each jewel contains the whole. The whole is present in every part. Every one of us is one of these jewels. Our very existence is a reflection of everyone and everything else. Another person's joy sends a shimmer across the entire net. Another's suffering casts a shadow on every jewel. This is the truth of our reality. Our belief that we are separate, solid, independent entities is the fundamental illusion. We are all inextricably linked in this shimmering, cosmic web. We have now explored the three great laws of the phenomenal world: impermanence, karma, and dependent origination. They show us a reality that is a flowing, interconnected, and lawfully ordered process. This understanding can bring a great sense of intellectual relief, a framework for making sense of the chaos of life. And yet, the heart still aches. If the ending of a relationship is as natural as a cloud dissipating, why does it feel like a violent storm inside our own chests? If there is truly no one to blame, why do we still feel such profound anger, such deep grief? The answer is that we have only looked at the external map of reality. The source of our personal suffering is not on the map itself. It is in the way we are holding it. It is in the grasping, clenching grip of the human mind. This leads us directly to the psychological core of the Buddha's teaching, the nature of our own attachment, our clinging, which in Pali is called upadana. We have laid out the map of reality, a landscape governed by the great laws of impermanence, karma, and interconnectedness. The map shows us that life is a flowing river, that relationships are like clouds that form and dissipate according to conditions. This understanding can bring a great intellectual peace, and yet, the heart still feels the sting of loss. The ache of absence remains. The map may be true, but the pain feels real. Why is this? The Buddha's diagnosis of the human condition points to a simple, devastatingly accurate answer. The problem is not the map, nor is it the landscape. The problem is the fist. It is the tight, white-knuckled grip with which we cling to the people, the moments, and the feelings that pass through our lives. This grasping, this psychic holding on, is what the Buddha identified as the direct and immediate cause of our suffering. He gave it a name, Upadana. It translates as clinging, attachment, or grasping. It is the engine of our discontent and the very root of the pain we feel when people come and go. To understand clinging, we must first make a critical distinction, one that is often lost in our everyday language. We must distinguish clinging from love. True love, in the Buddhist sense, is an expansive, generous, and outward-flowing energy. It is the sincere wish for another being to be happy and free from suffering. It is the energy of a parent watching their child play, finding joy in the child's own happiness. It is the warmth we feel when we see a friend succeed. This kind of love, called metta, or loving kindness, does not ask for anything in return. Its joy is in the giving. Clinging, or upadana, is the opposite. It is a contractive, needy, and inward-pulling energy. It is not about wanting another person to be happy. It is about wanting another person to make us happy. It is a transaction. It says, I need you to be a certain way, to say certain things, to stay with me, so that I can feel secure, whole, and not alone. It sees the other person not as a complete, flowing river of a being, but as a resource for our own emotional gratification. When we say, I can't live without you, it is rarely a statement of love. It is more often a confession of deep attachment. We are clinging not to the person, but to the function they serve in our own lives, the way they fill a perceived emptiness within us. We cling to many things. We cling to pleasant feelings. A new relationship brings excitement, validation, and comfort. These are pleasant sensations. And the mind, like any creature, seeks pleasure and avoids pain. We become addicted to the good feelings, and we see the other person as our dealer. When they change or leave, our supply is cut off, and we go into a painful withdrawal. We are not necessarily missing the person in their entirety. We are missing the pleasant feelings we associated with them. We also cling fiercely to views and ideas. We have a mental blueprint of what a relationship should be, a story about a shared future, a happily ever after. We cling to this story with incredible force. When the other person, being an impermanent and ever-changing being, deviates from our script, we don't just feel disappointment. We feel a deep sense of betrayal. Reality has violated our cherished idea, but reality was never obligated to follow our script. The suffering comes not from reality, but from the gap between reality and the story we were clinging to. When a person leaves, we are not just grieving them. We are grieving the future we lost, the story that will never be, the identity of partner or couple that has been stripped away from us. This is how clinging manufactures suffering. It creates a rigid, fixed demand and places it upon a reality that is fundamentally fluid and unfixed. The friction between our rigid clinging and the fluid nature of impermanence is precisely what we experience as pain, anxiety, grief, and anger. When we stand in the flowing river of life and demand that it stop for us, the force of the entire river pushes against our resistance. It is an exhausting and utterly unwinnable battle. The river will always win. The only question is how much we will suffer by resisting it. Letting go, therefore, is not an act of cold indifference. It is an act of profound wisdom and courage. It is the decision to stop fighting reality. There is a classic Zen story that beautifully illustrates this mental act of carrying versus letting go. Two monks, a senior one named Tanzan and a junior one named Aikido, were traveling together. They came to a river that had flooded, its waters muddy and rushing. A beautiful young woman in a fine silk kimono stood there, unable to cross. Without a word, the senior monk, Tanzan, walked up to her, lifted her into his arms, carried her across the turbulent water, and set her down gently on the other side. He then continued on his way. The junior monk, Aikido, was horrified. He followed Tanzan, his mind racing. For hours they walked in silence, but Aikido grew more and more agitated, his face a mask of disapproval. He was fuming. Finally, he could not contain himself any longer. That evening, he burst out, "Tanzan, we monks are not supposed to go near women, especially not young and lovely ones. It is against the rules. It is dangerous. Why did you do that?" Tanzan looked at his young companion, his expression one of mild surprise. He replied softly, "Oh, the girl? I left her back there at the river this morning. Are you still carrying her?" This story perfectly captures our predicament. Tanzan performed a compassionate action in the present moment, and then let it go completely. He was free. Aikido, bound by his rigid, clinging to rules and judgments, never even touched the woman, but he carried her in his mind for hours, the weight of his own attachment becoming a heavy burden. We are all Aikido. We carry our past hurts, our former partners, our grievances, and our regrets with us, long after the actual events have passed. We allow them to poison our present moment because we have not learned how to put them down. Learning to put down our burdens is not an act of forgetting or pretending they didn't happen. It is an act of love. Clinging is, in a subtle way, a form of violence. It is an attempt to control, to possess, to force another living being into a static role that serves our own needs. It suffocates both them and us. True love is the opposite. True love is an open palm. You can hold a small bird in an open palm. It may choose to stay for a while, and you can cherish its warmth and its beauty, but it is always free to fly away. If you try to possess it by closing your fist, you will crush the very thing you wish to hold. To love without clinging is to offer an open palm to the people in our lives. It is to cherish their presence without demanding their permanence. It is to want their ultimate happiness, even if that happiness is found on a path that diverges from our own. This is a higher, freer form of love, a love that liberates instead of imprisons. This constant act of clinging, this desperate need to hold on to people and experiences to feel complete, points to an even deeper question about our own nature. We cling because, on some level, we feel that we are lacking, that there is a fundamental hole in the center of our being. We use relationships like patches, hoping to cover over this sense of insufficiency. But what is this I that feels so incomplete? What is this self that feels the need to own and possess another? To get to the final root of clinging, we must turn the light of inquiry around and investigate the clinger itself. We must examine our own assumed sense of self. This leads us to the third of the great marks of existence, the most subtle and radical teaching of all, the truth of anatta, or not self. We have arrived at the very heart of our investigation. We have seen that our suffering comes from clinging, and that we cling because we feel a deep sense of lack, a hole in the center of our being that we try to fill with people, experiences, and possessions. This naturally leads to the most profound and challenging question of all. What is this I that feels so lacking? What is this self that does the clinging? We spend our entire lives defending, promoting, and gratifying this self. We build our identities around it. We go to war for it. Our every joy and sorrow seems to revolve around it. The Buddha asks us to do something truly radical. He asks us to turn the light of inquiry around and search for this self we so instinctively believe in. He invites us to see if we can find anything that corresponds to the word I. This investigation leads to the third great mark of existence, the truth of anatta, or not self. Now, this teaching is perhaps the most easily misunderstood. Anatta, or not self, does not mean that we do not exist. It is not a doctrine of nihilism that claims nothing matters. You are here, reading these words, thinking these thoughts. The teaching is far more subtle. It states that there is no permanent, unchanging, independent self, soul, or ego acting as a central commander in the headquarters of your mind and body. What we call ourself is not a static noun, but a dynamic verb. It is a process, a constantly changing collection of interacting components. The Buddha, in his genius as a spiritual scientist, deconstructed this process into 5 main categories, known as the 5 aggregates, or skandhas. He invites us to look for ourself in each of them. First, there is the aggregate of form, our physical body. Is this body me? It seems so at first, but this body is in a constant state of flux. It was different a year ago. It will be different tomorrow. It is composed entirely of not-self elements, the food, water, and air we have taken in from the world. If it is constantly changing and made of things that are not me, how can it be a permanent, independent self? So, we look elsewhere. Next is the aggregate of feelings, or sensations. These are the raw feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral that arise whenever our senses make contact with the world. Is my feeling of happiness me? Is my feeling of sadness me? Clearly not. Feelings are like weather patterns. They come and go with incredible speed. They are visitors, not the owner of the house. So, we move on to the third aggregate, perception. This is the faculty that recognizes and labels things. Blue sky, loud sound, bitter taste. Are my perceptions me? Our perceptions are deeply conditioned by our past experiences, our language, our culture. 2 people can look at the same event and perceive it in completely different ways. They are unreliable and unstable, not a solid self. The fourth aggregate is mental formations. This is the busiest and most chaotic category. It includes all our thoughts, opinions, beliefs, moods, habits, prejudices, and intentions. This is where most of us locate our sense of self, in our unique pattern of thoughts and personality traits. But are these thoughts me? If you sit quietly for even 1 minute, you will see that thoughts arise and pass away without your conscious command. They are a restless stream, a conditioned chatter. They are not a stable, singular CEO in charge. Finally, there is consciousness, the basic quality of knowing or awareness. There is eye consciousness that knows a sight, ear consciousness that knows a sound, and mind consciousness that knows a thought. Is this awareness me? The Buddha pointed out that consciousness is also dependent. It cannot arise without an object. Eye consciousness depends on both an eye and a visible form. It is not a standalone entity. It is a process of knowing, not a thing that knows. After this exhaustive search, we are left with a startling conclusion. We cannot find a stable, independent self anywhere in our own experience. There is a famous dialogue from an ancient Buddhist text that provides the perfect analogy for this discovery. It is the conversation between the Buddhist sage Nagasena and the Greco-Bactrian king Melinda. The king, a man of sharp intellect, wished to challenge the sage. He asked, "Venerable sir, what is your name? By what name are you known?" Nagasena replied that he was known as Nagasena, but that this was just a convenient name, a designation, and that no permanent individual, no Nagasena soul, could be found. The king was baffled. To illustrate his point, Nagasena turned the tables. He asked the king, "Your Majesty, you came here in a chariot, did you not?" The king confirmed that he had. Nagasena then began to deconstruct the chariot. "Your Majesty, is the pole of the chariot the chariot?" "No, venerable sir," the king replied. "Are the wheels the chariot? Is the axle, the frame, the ropes, the yoke?" To each question, the king had to answer no. Nagasena then asked, "Are all these parts taken together the chariot?" "No, venerable sir." "Then, is there something else? Something separate from all these parts, which is the chariot?" Again, the king had to reply, "Number." Nagasena then delivered his conclusion. "Your Majesty, chariot is simply a convenient name, a concept we apply to a particular assembly of parts. When the parts are taken together in a certain way, we use the designation chariot, but there is no intrinsic, separate chariot essence to be found. In exactly the same way, Nagasena is just a designation for this collection of body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. There is no permanent self to be found within them. This insight into not-self is the key that unlocks the prison of suffering, especially in our relationships. Because we believe in a solid, separate I, we automatically create a solid, separate you. This I then relates to the you from a position of ownership. We speak of my wife, my friend, my child. This language of possession, born from the illusion of a solid self, creates the entire foundation for suffering. When my friend changes or leaves, the solid I feels personally wounded, diminished, and robbed. It feels that a piece of its own territory has been taken away. The ego experiences a profound sense of injury and failure. "How could you do this to me?" is the silent, or not so silent, cry of the wounded self. But when we begin to see through this illusion, the entire dynamic changes. If there is no permanent, solid I to begin with, then who is the one being wounded? If there is no permanent owner, who is being robbed? There is still the arising of a painful feeling. The aggregate of sensation is still present. The sadness is real. But the second layer of suffering, the story of poor me, the ego's personal drama, begins to lose its fuel. We stop taking the changing nature of life as a personal attack. It is simply the aggregates shifting, the conditions changing, the chariot's parts being rearranged. This is not a bleak or annihilating teaching. It is the gateway to the greatest possible freedom. Without a fragile self to constantly defend, we can become more open, more resilient, and far more compassionate. Without a needy ego to gratify, we can finally begin to love without clinging. It is the ultimate letting go. Not just letting go of the other person, but letting go of the very I that was trying to possess them. With this profound understanding of anatta, our philosophical foundation is now complete. We have seen the three great truths of our existence: that everything is impermanent and in constant flux, Anicca, that all things are interconnected and lack any separate, independent self, anatta, and that our suffering, dukkha, comes from clinging to a false belief in permanence and selfhood in a world where they cannot be found. We have been given a new and radically different map of reality, but a map, no matter how accurate, is useless if you cannot read it, or if you do not know how to find your own position on it. Knowing these principles intellectually is not the same as living them, as feeling their truth in our own bones. So, how do we begin? How do we move from this conceptual understanding to an embodied, lived wisdom? The entire practical path of the Buddha's teaching is designed to answer this very question. It is a path of training the heart and mind, and it begins with a single fundamental skill. It starts with the gentle, radical, and transformative act of simply paying attention. It begins with the practice of mindfulness. We have now arrived at a critical turning point in our journey. We have explored the vast and perhaps unsettling philosophical landscape of our existence. We have seen that reality is a flowing river of impermanence, Anicca. We have learned that we are not separate islands, but jewels in a vast, interconnected net of being, a truth called anatta. We understand that our suffering, dukkha, arises not from this reality itself, but from our desperate, white-knuckled clinging to things as we wish them to be. We have been given the map, but a map is merely a piece of paper, an intellectual abstraction, until we learn how to use it to navigate the real, tangible territory of our own lives. Knowing the principles is not the same as being free. So, how do we begin? How do we translate this profound philosophy into a living, breathing experience that can heal our hearts when they are broken by loss? The Buddha's path is eminently practical. It is a path of training, of cultivation, and it begins with a single, fundamental capacity that we all possess, though we rarely use it to its full potential. It begins with the simple, gentle, and utterly radical act of paying attention on purpose. This skill, this art, is called sati in the Pali language. In English, we call it mindfulness. Mindfulness is, in its essence, the ability to know what is happening in your own mind, in your own body, and in the world around you, as it is happening, without immediate judgment or commentary. This sounds simple, but it is the very opposite of our mind's default state. For most of our waking lives, we are not truly present. Our bodies are in one place, but our minds are somewhere else entirely. We are caught in a restless trance, a phenomenon often called the monkey mind, swinging wildly from branch to branch. We are in the shower, but our mind is already in the office, rehearsing a difficult conversation. We are driving our car, but our mind is replaying a mistake we made yesterday. We are talking to a loved one, but our mind is planning what we will have for dinner. We are constantly lost in thought, ruminating on the past, or rehearsing an imagined future. We are everywhere but here, everywhen but now. We are not living our lives, we are thinking them. Mindfulness is the gentle interruption of this trance. It is the practice of returning, again and again, to the present moment, the only moment where life is actually unfolding. It is crucial to understand that mindfulness is not about stopping our thoughts. You cannot win a war against your own mind. The attempt to force your mind into silence will only create more tension and frustration. The practice is not about getting rid of the thoughts, but about changing your relationship to them. Imagine your thoughts are a flowing river. Our habitual way is to be caught in the current, tossed and turned by every thought and emotion that comes along. Mindfulness is the act of learning how to swim to the riverbank, sit down under a tree, and simply watch the river of your own mind flow by. From the bank, you can see everything clearly. You see the angry, turbulent thoughts. You see the calm, clear thoughts. You see the logs of old memories and the leaves of future plans. You see it all, but you are no longer swept away by it. You are the witness, not the victim of your own mind. So how do we cultivate this ability to sit on the riverbank? How do we build this muscle of attention? The classical and most effective way is through the practice of mindfulness of breathing, or anapanasati. The breath is chosen as the primary object of meditation for several very good reasons. First, it is always with us. From the moment we are born to the moment we die, we don't have to go anywhere to find it. Second, the breath is always happening in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past, and you cannot breathe in the future. To be aware of your breath is, by definition, to be in the now. Third, the breath is a profound bridge between our conscious and unconscious worlds. It happens automatically, yet we can also consciously regulate it. It is a perfect anchor for our wandering attention. So let us explore this practice, not just as an idea, but as an experience. You can do this right now. Find a comfortable posture, either sitting on a chair with your feet flat on the floor, or on a cushion on the ground. You can gently close your eyes, or leave them slightly open with a soft, unfocused gaze. There is no need for a special posture or place. And now, simply bring your awareness to the fact that you are breathing, without changing or controlling it in any way. Just feel the physical sensations of the breath as it moves in and out of your body. You might notice the sensation of the air entering your nostrils, perhaps feeling slightly cool as it comes in, and you might feel it being slightly warm as it leaves. Or perhaps you feel the gentle rising and falling of your abdomen or your chest. Choose one of these spots and let your attention rest there, as lightly as a butterfly resting on a flower. Your only task is to feel the sensation of one in-breath, from its beginning to its end, and then to feel the sensation of one out-breath, from its beginning to its end. That is all. Inevitably, perhaps after only 1 or 2 breaths, you will find that your mind has wandered away. It will have been hooked by a thought, a memory, a sound, a plan. This is not a mistake. It is not a failure. It is simply what minds do. This is the nature of the monkey mind. The magic of the practice happens in the very next moment. The moment you realize that your mind has wandered, that moment of recognition is a moment of pure mindfulness. You have woken up from the dream of thought. In that moment, be gentle with yourself. Do not judge or scold your mind. Simply acknowledge where it went. Thinking or planning, and then, with great kindness and patience, gently guide your attention back to the anchor of the breath. This process of wandering off, realizing it, and gently returning is the practice. It is the mental equivalent of lifting a weight in the gym. Every time you guide your attention back to the breath, you are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. You are carving a new neural pathway in your brain, a pathway of presence and calm. You do this again and again and again. It is a practice of infinite patience and radical kindness towards your own mind. As this muscle of attention grows stronger, we can begin to expand the field of our awareness beyond the breath. We can practice mindfulness of the body. Throughout the day, you can bring your awareness to the physical sensations of your body. Feel the contact of your feet on the ground as you walk. Feel the warmth of a cup of coffee in your hands. Feel the sensation of water on your skin as you wash the dishes. This practice brings us out of the abstract world of thought and grounds us firmly in the reality of the present moment. It helps us to inhabit our own lives, and then we can do something even more profound. We can bring mindfulness to our feelings, especially the difficult ones that arise when we experience loss. This is where the practice becomes a powerful medicine. Our usual habit, when a painful feeling like grief, loneliness, or anger arises, is to do one of 2 things. We either suppress it, trying to push it away, distract ourselves, and pretend it's not there, or We are completely consumed by it. We become the anger, we become the grief, and it dictates our every thought and action. Mindfulness offers a third way, a middle path. The instruction is to turn towards the feeling with a gentle, curious, and non-judgmental awareness. When a wave of sadness about a person who has left your life arises, instead of running from it, you can stop, you can breathe, and you can acknowledge its presence, as if you were acknowledging a visitor at your door. Ah, sadness is here, loneliness is here. You are not endorsing it or rejecting it. You are simply recognizing that it is present in your experience. You can then investigate it with gentle curiosity. Where do you feel this sadness in your body? Is it a tightness in your throat, a heaviness in your chest, a hollowness in your stomach? Just feel the raw, physical sensations of the emotion without adding a story to it. When you do this, you make a profound discovery. You realize that you are not the sadness. You are the awareness that knows the sadness. You are not the storm. You are the sky in which the storm of emotion is passing through. This creates a space. In this space, the emotion is allowed to be felt, to be honored, and ultimately, to move on in its own time. You are no longer fighting it or drowning in it. You are holding it with a vast and compassionate attention. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh used a beautiful analogy to describe this transformative power of non-judgmental awareness. He said to imagine that your consciousness is a garden. In this garden, beautiful flowers sometimes grow, flowers of joy, love, and peace. But at other times, less desirable things appear. Weeds of anger and jealousy sprout up, and there are piles of garbage, the rotting compost of our old wounds, our traumas, and our deepest sorrows. Our usual habit is to be a judgmental gardener. We love the flowers, and we desperately try to hide or get rid of the garbage. We are ashamed of it. We cover it with layers of denial and distraction, but the garbage just continues to rot and smell, affecting the whole garden. Mindfulness, he said, is like the sun. The sun does not judge. It shines its warm, clear light equally on everything. It shines on the fragrant rose, and it shines on the pile of rotting garbage. It does not prefer one over the other, and a miracle happens when the sunlight of our mindful awareness shines steadily on the garbage of our suffering. It does not condemn it. It does not analyze it. It simply sees it, accepts its presence, and embraces it with its warmth. And in being seen and embraced in this way, the garbage begins to transform. The compost breaks down, and it turns into rich, fertile soil from which new flowers, flowers of compassion and understanding, can eventually grow. Our pain, when held in the light of mindfulness, is not our enemy. It is the very raw material of our awakening. This practice of mindful observation fundamentally rewrites our relationship with life. It creates a precious space between stimulus and response. Let us imagine a common scenario. Someone you care about says something that you perceive as critical or unfair. This is the stimulus. For most of us, the reaction is instantaneous and automatic. A flash of anger, a defensive comment, a sarcastic retort. The stimulus and the reaction are fused together. There is no space between them. We are a puppet, and the external event pulls our strings. But with a trained mindfulness, the sequence changes. The critical words are heard. The stimulus arrives. But because you have been practicing, a small gap, a tiny pause, opens up. In that half-second of space, you are able to watch the inner reaction as it arises. You can observe, there is a feeling of being hurt. There is a thought, that's not fair. there is a hot flush of anger rising in my chest. Because you can see it, you are not it. You are not a slave to it. And in that space, you have a choice. You are no longer a puppet. You can choose to take a breath. You can choose to remain silent. You can choose to respond, not from the raw wound of your reaction, but from a place of wisdom and compassion. The Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." Mindfulness is the tool we use to find and inhabit that sacred space. It is the very foundation of our freedom. As we begin to shine this gentle, non-judgmental light of mindfulness into the hidden corners of our own inner world, we start to notice things. We see the patterns. We see the recurring thoughts, the habitual emotional reactions. We start to recognize the specific mental guests that arrive again and again to disturb our peace and cloud our inner sky. The Buddha, with his incredible psychological insight, identified 5 particularly common and powerful of these visitors. He called them the 5 hindrances. To learn to recognize them by name, to understand their nature, and to know how to skillfully work with them is the next essential step on our path to freeing the heart. As we begin to practice mindfulness, shining the light of awareness into our own minds, it is like becoming the sky, capable of holding whatever weather passes through. But we soon notice that the weather is not entirely random. Certain clouds, certain atmospheric conditions appear with a stubborn regularity. They are habitual patterns of the mind that obscure the natural clarity and peace of our underlying awareness. The Buddha, being a master physician of the mind, identified 5 particularly powerful and common patterns that prevent clarity and cause us distress. He called them the 5 hindrances, or the nivaranas. They are the primary obstacles we encounter on the path to inner peace. To know them, to recognize them when they arise, is the first and most crucial step toward freeing ourselves from their influence. Imagine that your mind, in its natural state, is like a perfectly still, clear mountain lake. Its surface is so calm, it can reflect the moon, the stars, and the vastness of the night sky with perfect fidelity. This reflection is wisdom, the ability to see things exactly as they are. The 5 hindrances are 5 different ways that the clarity of this lake can be disturbed. The first hindrance is sensory desire, or kamachanda. This is the disturbance of adding brightly colored dye to the water of the lake. The water itself might still be calm, but it is no longer clear. It is tinted with the color of our wanting, and we can no longer see the true reflection, only the hue of our own craving. Sensory desire is the mind's constant pull towards pleasure. It is the perpetual leaning in towards anything that gratifies the 5 senses and the mind. In our modern world, this hindrance is supercharged. It is the endless scroll through social media, the binge-watching of a television series, the constant pursuit of the next pleasurable meal, the next purchase, the next stimulating experience. It is a hunger that is never satisfied, for as soon as one pleasure is consumed, the mind immediately begins seeking the next. In the context of relationships and loss, this hindrance is a primary source of pain. When a person leaves, sensory desire manifests as a desperate clinging to the memory of pleasant sensations. We endlessly replay the happy moments, the feeling of their touch, the sound of their voice. We become addicted to the ghost of the pleasure they provided, and this addiction prevents us from being present with our life as it is now. We are trying to see a reflection in a lake that is saturated with the red dye of longing. The second hindrance is ill will, or vyapada. If desire is like dye, Ill will is like putting a fire under the lake and causing the water to boil. The water becomes turbulent, agitated, and scalding. All clarity is lost, and it is dangerous to even touch. Ill will is the mind's pushing away of unpleasant experience. It manifests as anger, hatred, frustration, resentment, and aversion. It is the simmering grudge we hold against a coworker, the flash of rage in traffic, the bitter internal monologue we direct at those who have hurt us. It is a state of contraction and hostility. When a relationship ends, ill will is the boiling water of blame. It is the anger directed at the person who left, at the circumstances of the separation, or even at ourselves. The mind becomes a courtroom where we endlessly prosecute the other person for the pain they caused, replaying every perceived slight and injustice. This state of boiling resentment completely obscures any possibility of seeing the situation clearly, of seeing our own role, or of seeing the other person as a complex, suffering being just like ourselves. It scalds us from the inside out and makes healing impossible. The third hindrance is sloth and torpor, or thina middha. This is like the lake becoming overgrown with a thick layer of slimy algae and dense weeds. The water becomes stagnant, heavy, and trapped. No light can penetrate its surface, and no reflection is possible. Sloth and torpor is a state of mental and physical heaviness, dullness, and inertia. It is not simple tiredness from a long day's work. It is a deep-seated resistance, a mental fog that saps our energy and motivation. It is the feeling of wanting to pull the blankets over your head and not face the world, the mental state of procrastination and listlessness. After a significant loss, this hindrance can manifest as a deep, lethargic depression. It is the feeling of being unable to muster the energy to meditate, to exercise, to connect with others, or even to perform basic daily tasks. The mind feels too heavy to make an effort. It is a sunken, immobilized state where the clear waters of awareness are trapped beneath a suffocating blanket of apathy. The fourth hindrance is restlessness and worry, or uddaka kukuku. This is like a strong, persistent wind whipping the surface of the lake into a frenzy of choppy, agitated waves. The moon is still in the sky, but its reflection is shattered into 1,000 fragmented, distorted pieces. Nothing can be seen with any clarity. This is the state of the monkey mind in overdrive. Restlessness is the agitated, can't, sit-still quality of the mind, while worry is its cognitive component, the churning thoughts of regret and anxiety. The mind cannot settle. It jumps from anxious what-ifs about the future to guilty if-onlys about the past. It is a state of perpetual inner turmoil. This hindrance is the very definition of anxiety. In the aftermath of a separation, it is the mind that works overtime. What did I do wrong? I should have said this instead. What will people think? Will I be alone forever? The mind is like a frantic ghost, unable to rest in the present moment, constantly flitting between the graveyard of the past and the terrifying, imagined landscape of the future. This inner wind shatters our peace and makes clear seeing impossible. The fifth and final hindrance is skeptical doubt, or vicikiccha. This is like the water of the lake being filled with mud and sediment, stirred up from the very bottom. The water becomes murky, opaque, and impenetrable. You cannot see the reflection, and you cannot even see the bottom of the lake. You are lost in a fog of confusion. This doubt is not the intelligent, questioning curiosity that is essential for inquiry. It is a corrosive, cynical, and paralyzing state of indecision. It is doubt in the path. Does this mindfulness stuff really work? Or is it just a waste of time? It is doubt in the teacher or the teachings. And most commonly, it is doubt in oneself. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm too damaged to heal. Other people can find peace, but not me. This hindrance effectively cuts our legs out from under us. It saps our confidence and prevents us from even trying. After a relationship ends, it can manifest as a deep doubt in our own judgment or a cynical belief that true, lasting connection is impossible. It is the voice that whispers, "What's the point?" and keeps us stuck in the mud of our own confusion. Recognizing these 5 visitors when they arrive in the mind is the beginning of wisdom. Through mindfulness, we can learn to greet them at the door. This feeling of anger, this is ill will. This heavy, foggy feeling, this is sloth and torpor. This anxious, churning mind, this is restlessness and worry. The very act of naming them separates us from them. You are not the anger. You are the one who is aware of anger. This creates the space necessary for a skillful response. It is not about fighting the hindrances or violently trying to eject them from the mind. That would be like trying to flatten the waves on the lake with an iron, which only creates more commotion. Instead, it is about learning to apply the right antidote. To counter the die of desire, we contemplate impermanence. To cool the boiling water of ill will, we apply the cool water of loving kindness. To cut through the weeds of sloth and torpor, we arouse energy. To calm the winds of restlessness, we return to the anchor of the breath. To clear the mud of doubt, we seek wise counsel and take one small, confident step. Recognizing these 5 hindrances and knowing their general remedies is a major step. But to truly establish a mind that is clear, stable, and resilient, we need more than just occasional remedies. We need a comprehensive, systematic path of cultivation. We need a way of life that actively undermines the hindrances and nurtures their wholesome opposites. This complete, holistic framework for living is precisely what the Buddha offered to the world. It is the very structure of the journey to awakening, known as the Noble Eightfold Path. We have seen how the 5 hindrances act like clouds, obscuring the natural clarity of our minds and causing us distress. To simply be aware of them is a great step, but it is not enough. A garden is not cultivated merely by identifying the weeds. It is cultivated by the active, intentional planting of flowers and wholesome fruits. The Noble Eightfold Path is the Buddha's complete blueprint for cultivating the garden of the mind. It is not a list of commandments to be blindly obeyed, but a set of 8 interconnected, mutually supporting practices that, when cultivated together, lead to the end of suffering. It is a path to walk, a way to live that transforms every aspect of our being. The path is traditionally divided into 3 sections. First, wisdom, which is called panya. Second, ethical conduct, called sila. And third, mental discipline, called samadhi. The journey begins with wisdom, for without a clear understanding of where we are going, any effort we make is likely to be misplaced. Wisdom provides the map and the compass for the entire journey. The division of wisdom consists of the first 2 factors of the path. The very first, the foundation upon which everything else is built, is right view, or samadhitehi. The word right, in this context, does not mean morally correct as opposed to wrong. It means in accordance with reality, complete and effective. Right view is the practice of seeing the world and ourselves as it truly is. It is the direct, experiential understanding of the great laws we have already explored. It is the seeing of impermanence, Anicca, in every cell of our bodies and every moment of our lives. It is the seeing of not-self, anatta, the recognition that there is no fixed, separate ego to be found, only a flowing process of interconnected aggregates. And it is the seeing of karma and dependent origination, understanding how actions and conditions create our reality. Without right view, we are like a ship without a rudder, sailing on a vast ocean with a completely inaccurate map. We might row with all our might, but we will only travel further in the wrong direction. Right view is the corrected map. When applied to our relationships, right view is the liberating understanding that when a person leaves, it is not a personal attack on a solid, existing me. It is the natural, impersonal unfolding of conditions. It is Anicca and dependent origination in action. This view alone has the power to drain the poison from the wound of loss, replacing the story of personal failure with one of compassionate understanding. Flowing directly from right view is the second factor, right intention, or sammasankappa. Once our view is clear, we can then align the motivations of our heart with that clarity. Right intention is concerned with the why behind our actions, the purification of our deepest will. It is the conscious cultivation of wholesome intentions and the gentle abandonment of unwholesome ones. The Buddha specified 3 kinds of right intention. The first is the intention of renunciation, or letting go. This is the direct antidote to the hindrance of sensory desire and clinging. It is the cultivation of a will that is not constantly grasping, a heart that finds contentment in simplicity rather than an endless chase for more. It is the intention to let go of our rigid demands on reality, to hold our lives and our relationships with an open palm rather than a clenched fist. The second is the intention of loving kindness or goodwill. This is the direct antidote to the hindrance of ill will. It is the active, heartfelt wish for all beings, including ourselves, to be happy and well. When we are hurt by someone's departure, instead of cultivating the intention of resentment, we consciously, even if it feels difficult at first, cultivate the intention of goodwill, wishing them peace on their own path. The third is the intention of harmlessness or compassion. This is the intention to not cause suffering, physically or mentally, to any living being. It is the recognition of our shared vulnerability, the wish to protect and alleviate the pain of others. Right intention purifies our heart, ensuring that the energy that drives us is one of clarity, kindness, and freedom. With a clear map from right view and a pure motivation from right intention, we are now ready to act in the world. This brings us to the second division of the path, ethical conduct, or sila. Sila is the way we translate our inner wisdom and kindness into our outer speech and actions. It is about creating a life of integrity and harmlessness, which provides the stable, peaceful foundation necessary for the deeper work of training the mind. A guilty conscience is a restless mind, so sila is the practice of living in such a way that we have nothing to regret. The third factor of the path is right speech, or samma vaca. We so often underestimate the power of our words. Words can build up, and they can destroy. Right speech is the practice of using our communication to create trust, harmony, and well-being. It consists of 4 parts. First, we practice abstaining from lying and, instead, speaking the truth. This builds integrity within ourselves and trust with others. Second, we abstain from divisive or slanderous speech, from gossip that sets one person against another. We refrain from speaking ill of people behind their backs. This practice protects the harmony of our communities. Third, we abstain from harsh or abusive speech. We learn to let go of sarcasm, insults, and angry words that are intended only to wound. Instead, we cultivate speech that is gentle and kind, even when we must say something difficult. Fourth, we abstain from idle chatter. This is the practice of not speaking aimlessly, simply to fill the silence, but to speak words that are meaningful, purposeful, and beneficial. In our relationships, practicing right speech is transformative. It means communicating honestly but kindly, creating a space where both people feel safe to be vulnerable, a space free from the poison of lies, gossip, and verbal abuse. The fourth factor is right action, or sammakamanta. This concerns our physical behavior. Like right speech, it is about the principle of harmlessness. It also has specific components. First, we practice abstaining from taking life. This is the cultivation of a deep respect for all living beings, from the smallest insect to our fellow humans. It is the recognition that all beings wish to live and to avoid pain. Second, we practice abstaining from taking what is not given. This is more than just not stealing money or objects. It is a respect for the property and resources of others, an attitude of non-exploitation. Third, we practice abstaining from sexual misconduct. This means not causing harm to ourselves or others through our sexual energy. It means honoring commitments, respecting boundaries, and ensuring there is mutual consent and kindness in our intimate relationships, never treating another person as a mere object for our gratification. Living with right action creates a life of profound peace. We can lay our head on the pillow at night, knowing we have caused no deliberate harm in the world. This blamelessness is a powerful balm for the mind. A master carpenter, before making a single cut into a piece of precious wood, will first stretch a string that has been coated in black ink. He will pull it taut against the wood and then snap it. It leaves a perfectly straight, clear line. Right view and right intention are this ink line. They provide the clear, unwavering guide for our life. All the subsequent cuts we make, our words and our actions, will only be straight and true if they follow this foundational line of wisdom and compassion. These first 4 steps of the path create a seismic shift in our orientation to life. They provide us with a lucid understanding and a solid ethical grounding. They purify our outward behavior and our inner motivations, preventing us from planting new seeds of suffering. They help us to craft a life of harmlessness and integrity, which in itself brings a deep sense of peace and self-respect. But to truly uproot the hindrances from the deep soil of the mind and to bring it to a state of unshakable calm and penetrating insight, this outer work must be supported by a dedicated inner training. This brings us to the next stages of the path, the profound cultivation of mental discipline, beginning with how we engage with the world through our work. Having established a life grounded in wisdom and ethical conduct, we turn now to the direct training of the mind itself. This is the third great division of the path, known as samadhi, or mental discipline. If wisdom is the blueprint for our house and ethics are the solid foundation, then mental discipline is the patient, skillful work of building the structure, of shaping the very material of our consciousness. This is the heart of meditative practice, the how-to of transforming our inner world. The journey into mental discipline begins, however, by ensuring our engagement with the outer world is in harmony with our inner aspirations. This is the 5th factor of the path, right livelihood, or samma ajiva. It is the final piece of the division of ethical conduct, and it serves as a crucial bridge between our life in the world and our practice on the cushion. Right livelihood is the principle that our work, the activity to which we dedicate the majority of our waking hours, should not cause harm to ourselves or others. The Buddha specified certain livelihoods to be avoided, such as trading in weapons, in poisons, in intoxicants that cloud the mind, or in human beings. The underlying principle is one of harmlessness. In our complex modern world, we can extend this principle by asking ourselves deep questions about our work. Does it exploit other people? Does it degrade the environment? Does it depend upon or promote the greed, hatred, and delusion of others? To engage in work that contradicts our deepest values is to live in a state of inner conflict. This psychic friction agitates the mind and makes true peace impossible. Conversely, to earn a living in a way that is honest, helpful, and harmless brings a profound sense of integrity and peace. This blamelessness is a prerequisite for the deep states of calm we wish to cultivate. With our outer life in order, we can turn fully to the inner landscape. This brings us to the sixth factor, right effort, or samma vayama. This is the engine of the path, the conscious and skillful application of energy. It is not a grim, joyless struggle, but an intelligent and balanced cultivation. The Buddha, a master psychologist, understood that a passive approach is not enough to overcome deeply ingrained habits. We must apply wise effort. He described this practice in 4 beautiful parts. First, there is the effort to prevent unwholesome states that have not yet arisen. This is the effort of guarding the doors of our senses. When we see or hear something that could trigger anger or greed, we apply mindfulness and choose not to let the unwholesome state take root. Second is the effort to abandon unwholesome states that have already arisen. When we find that anger or jealousy has already taken hold of the mind, we don't despair. We skillfully apply the antidote, such as contemplating loving kindness, and gently release our grip on the negativity. Third is the effort to cultivate wholesome states that have not yet arisen. This is the proactive work of planting seeds of kindness, generosity, patience, and compassion in the garden of the mind, even when we don't feel particularly inspired. Fourth is the effort to maintain and nurture the wholesome states that are already present. When a moment of joy or peace arises, we cherish it and encourage it to grow, giving it our full attention. The key to right effort is balance. It is not about straining with heroic, teeth-gritting force. This only creates more tension. There is a story of a monk named Sona who was practicing with such extreme, relentless effort that he became discouraged and considered giving up. The Buddha, knowing his state of mind, went to him and asked, "Sona, is it true that before you became a monk, you were a skilled musician, an expert at playing the lute?" Sona replied that it was true. The Buddha then asked, "And what happens if the strings of your lute are wound too tightly?" Sona answered, "Venerable sir, they will snap. And what happens if they are left too loose? Sir, they will not make a sound." The Buddha then delivered the teaching, "In the very same way, Sona, energy that is too strenuous leads to restlessness, and energy that is too slack leads to laziness. Therefore, determine the right pitch for your energy, find the balance, and aim for that." Right effort is the art of tuning the instrument of our mind, not too tight and not too loose, so that it can produce the beautiful music of peace. How do we know when to apply effort, and what kind of effort to apply? This brings us to the seventh factor, the very heart that powers the entire path, right mindfulness, or samma sati. We have already introduced mindfulness as the art of paying attention. Here, we see it in its full context as the chief operating officer of the mind. It is right mindfulness that has the crucial job of knowing what is actually happening in our inner world from moment to moment. It is mindfulness that recognizes, an unwholesome thought of resentment has just arisen. This recognition is what allows right effort to perform its second function, the effort to abandon it. It is mindfulness that recognizes, the mind is starting to feel dull and heavy. This allows right effort to engage its third function, the effort to arouse energy. And it is mindfulness that recognizes, a beautiful feeling of calm is present. This allows right effort to engage its fourth function, the effort to maintain and nurture it. Without right mindfulness, right effort is blind. We would be like a gardener pulling up flowers and watering weeds. Mindfulness is the clear, non-judgmental seeing that makes our effort wise and effective. It is the steady, unwavering light that illuminates the entire landscape of the mind, allowing us to work skillfully with whatever we find there. As these factors of the path are practiced together, they culminate in the eighth and final factor, right concentration, or samadhi. This is the fruit of a path well practiced. When our lives are ethical, our effort is balanced, and our mindfulness is continuous, the mind naturally begins to settle. The 5 hindrances subside. The dye of desire fades. The water of ill will stops boiling. The weeds of sloth are cleared. The wind of restlessness dies down, and the mud of doubt settles to the bottom. For the first time, the lake of the mind becomes truly still and profoundly clear. Concentration is the ability to gather all the scattered rays of our mental energy, which are normally dissipated in 1,000 different directions, and unify them on a single point, such as the breath. This is not the tense, narrow focus of a sniper, which is exhausting. It is a joyful collectedness, a state of profound ease and stability. When the mind is in a state of right concentration, it is supremely workable. It is strong, pliable, and lucid. A deep sense of well-being and quiet joy pervades the body and mind. It is from this stable platform of deep calm that the most penetrating insights into the nature of reality can arise. It is here, in the silent depths of the concentrated mind, that the truths of impermanence and not self are no longer just ideas, but can be seen directly, a seeing that has the power to liberate the heart completely. The Noble Eightfold Path is not a linear sequence of steps, where you must perfect one before moving to the next. It is a circle, a wheel, where each of the 8 spokes gives strength and integrity to the whole. Right view gives you the direction, which informs your right intention. Your intention guides your right speech and right action. Living ethically brings the peace of mind that supports right effort and right mindfulness. This mindful effort leads to the deep calm of right concentration, and from within that calm, your right view becomes even deeper and more profound, and the whole beautiful cycle begins again at a higher level. As we walk this path, the mind becomes progressively more pliable, peaceful, and clear. The murky, turbulent waters of the hindrances begin to settle, and in this newfound clarity, we discover that we have the capacity not just to endure our suffering, but to actively cultivate its sublime opposites. We learn that we can grow the most beautiful and radiant flowers in the garden of the heart. This brings us to the joyful cultivation of what are known as the 4 divine abodhis, or the Brahma Viharas, beginning with the boundless, unconditional warmth of loving kindness. As we walk the Eightfold Path, we learn to clear the weeds and till the soil of our minds. We establish a ground of wisdom, ethics, and mental discipline. The garden is now prepared, and so we arrive at the joyful and transformative work of planting the most beautiful flowers, the radiant qualities of the heart that are the true expression of a liberated mind. These are known as the four divine abadis, or the Brahma Viharas, the sublime states in which a purified mind can dwell. They are the ultimate antidote to the suffering of our human condition, the answer to the fear and separation that plagues us. The first, and the gateway to all the others, is the boundless, unconditional warmth of loving kindness, known in Pali as metta. It is essential to understand what metta is and what it is not. It is not the sentimental, often possessive, and conditional state we usually call love in our songs and movies. It is not romantic love, which is often entangled with desire and attachment. It is not mere affection for those who are nice to us. Metta is far more vast and radical. It is a universal, benevolent friendliness, a steady, unconditional wish for the well-being of all living things, without exception and without discrimination. It is like the warmth of the sun, which shines down on the saint and the sinner, the flower and the weed, the person who loves us and the person who has hurt us, all with the same impartial generosity. It is the heart's deepest wish. May you be happy. Metta is the direct, powerful antidote to the second hindrance, ill will. Where ill will, anger, and resentment are contractive, tight, and painful states, metta is expansive, soft, and joyful. It is the practice of intentionally softening the hardened places of our heart. The practice of cultivating metta, called metta bhavana, is a formal meditation, a systematic training of the heart, and it always begins in the place that is often the most difficult for us, with ourselves. We cannot offer water to a thirsty world from an empty well. We cannot genuinely wish for others to be happy if we are at war with ourselves. So, the practice starts with learning to offer this kindness to our own being. You can begin right now. Find a posture that is both comfortable and alert. Allow your eyes to close gently. Let go of any agenda, any need to achieve anything. Simply arrive in the present moment, and then, gently, bring your awareness to your own presence, this body, this heart, this mind, and as best you can, begin to silently offer yourself phrases of kindness, like a gentle, repeating mantra in the heart. The traditional phrases are, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease. You don't need to force a particular feeling. You are simply planting the seeds. Repeat the phrases gently, allowing their intention to soak into your being. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be truly happy and content. May I be healthy in body and in mind. May I live my life with a sense of ease and well-being. As you do this, you may notice some resistance. A voice of self-criticism may arise, whispering, "You don't deserve this. You are not worthy of this kindness." This is very common. The practice is not to fight this voice, but to meet it with mindfulness and even more kindness. See this critical voice as a wounded part of yourself that also deserves compassion. Acknowledge it. Ah, the voice of judgment is here. And then gently return to the phrases. You don't have to believe them 100% at first. The practice is in the offering. You are offering a gift to your own heart. Over time, as you continue this practice, a gentle warmth, a softening, begins to occur. You learn to hold your own being with the same kindness you might offer to a beloved friend. This is the foundation upon which all other love is built. Once you have established a degree of warmth for yourself, you can begin to expand the circle of metta. Next, bring to mind a benefactor, a respected teacher, or a dear friend, someone for whom you feel easy and uncomplicated love and gratitude. Picture them in your mind's eye and begin to direct the phrases of metta towards them. Feel the natural warmth in your heart as you wish them well. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Let your heart extend its genuine goodwill to this person, bathing them in the light of your kindness. After some time, you expand the circle again, this time to include a neutral person. This might be a clerk at a grocery store, a neighbor you see but don't know well, someone you have no strong feelings about one way or the other. This stage is very important. It helps us to break down the barrier of indifference. We train the heart to be kind and open, even when there is no personal benefit or emotional charge. We see this neutral person as a human being, just like us, who also wishes to be happy and to avoid suffering. And so, we offer them the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Finally, the most challenging and transformative stage of the practice. If, and only if, you feel grounded in a sense of loving kindness, you can try to expand the circle to include a difficult person. It is wise to start with someone who causes only mild irritation, not with the person who has caused you the deepest trauma. Bring this person to mind and recognize, first, that this person is also a suffering being. Their harmful actions most likely come from their own pain, their own confusion, their own delusion. Seeing their humanity, you then, as an act of courage, and for the sake of your own heart's liberation, try to offer them the phrases of metta. May you be safe. May you be happy. This is not about condoning their harmful actions. It is not about forcing a reconciliation. It is about the radical recognition that holding on to hatred and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It only harms ourselves. The practice of offering metta to a difficult person is an act of freeing our own heart from the prison of bitterness. This practice has a direct and profound application to the pain of loss. When someone leaves our life, the mind's habit is to either desperately cling, fueling our own suffering, or to become hard and resentful, poisoning our own heart with ill will. Metta is the medicine that can dissolve both reactions. It allows us to hold the memory of the person who has gone, and instead of anger, we can consciously cultivate the wish, may you be well, may you find the happiness you are looking for. This is an act of immense grace. It allows us to close the chapter with love rather than bitterness, which is the key to our own healing. The Buddha taught that the true measure of this practice is its unconditional nature. He gave a powerful, even shocking, teaching. He said, "Monks, even if bandits were to savagely sever you, limb by limb, with a two-handled saw, he who gave rise to a mind of hate towards them would not be carrying out my teaching." He taught that even in such an extreme situation, one should train the mind to radiate boundless loving kindness to all, including the very bandits causing such horrific pain. For most of us, this is not a literal instruction, but a North Star. It shows us the limitless, radical capacity of the human heart to replace hatred with love, to meet cruelty with an unshakable benevolence. Metta, this boundless, unconditional loving kindness, is the first of the four divine abodes. It is the heart's natural response to the universal wish for happiness in ourselves and in all others. But what happens when the heart, filled with this loving kindness, encounters not the abstract wish for happiness, but the raw, tangible reality of suffering? What happens when love meets pain? When metta comes face to face with dukkha, it does not turn away. It transforms. It evolves into a new, but intimately related quality. This brings us to the second of the divine abodes, the tender, trembling of the heart in the face of pain, the quality we call karuna, or compassion. If metta, or loving kindness, is the boundless warmth of the sun, then karuna, or compassion, is what happens when the rays of that sun touch the frozen ground of suffering. It is the heart's active response to the presence of pain, where metta is the sincere wish, may you be happy. Karuna is the equally sincere wish, may you be free from suffering. They are not two separate things, but two faces of a single great love. Karuna is often translated as compassion, but its Pali root suggests something more visceral, a trembling or quivering of the heart. It is the feeling that arises within us when we are willing to truly witness the pain of another being, a resonant vibration that acknowledges a shared vulnerability. This is what distinguishes true compassion from its paler cousin, pity. Pity stands above, looking down. It says, "Oh, you poor thing, how terrible your situation is. I am so glad it is not mine." Pity creates distance. It reinforces a sense of separation and superiority. Compassion, on the other hand, stands alongside. It says, "I see your pain. I am here with you. Your suffering touches me." It is born from the recognition of equality, the profound understanding that we are all in this together. The fertile ground in which compassion grows is the deep experiential understanding of the first noble truth, the truth of dukkha, or suffering. When we first encounter this teaching, it can seem pessimistic, but as we look more deeply, we realize it is not a bleak judgment on life, but a universal common denominator that connects every living being. We understand that everyone, without exception, is subject to the great tides of existence. Everyone we have ever met, everyone we will ever meet, will experience the pain of sickness, the sorrow of aging, and the inevitability of death. Everyone has felt the sting of loss, the frustration of plans gone awry, the ache of being misunderstood, the loneliness of a solitary heart. No one is exempt. This shared predicament of dukkha is the great equalizer. It cuts through all the superficial distinctions of wealth, status, nationality, and belief that we use to divide ourselves. Underneath it all, we are all fellow travelers, fellow sufferers, each doing our best to navigate this beautiful and often painful journey of life. It is this profound realization that holds the key to developing compassion for those who have hurt us. When we are caught in the pain of a relationship ending, our focus is naturally on our own wound. The other person can easily become a two-dimensional villain in the story of our suffering. We see them only through the lens of the pain they caused us. But the practice of compassion invites us to widen that lens. It asks us to consider that this person who left, this person who caused us such grief, is also a being trapped in the web of dukkha. They too have their own fears, their own insecurities, their own hidden sorrows and unfulfilled longings. Their actions, however hurtful to us, were most likely born from their own confusion, their own clumsy and unskillful attempt to find happiness or run away from their own pain. When we can see them not as a malicious perpetrator, but as a fellow suffering being, something miraculous happens. The anger and resentment begin to lose their sharp edges. We stop taking their actions so personally. It does not mean we excuse what they did, or that we must allow them back into our lives. It simply means we can stop carrying the heavy, toxic burden of our hatred for them. We can let them go, not with bitterness, but with a quiet, compassionate understanding that they too are just trying to find their way. This shift in perspective is an act of profound self-healing. This outward-facing compassion, however, is hollow and unsustainable if it is not built upon a foundation of compassion for ourselves. For many of us, especially in a culture that prizes strength and perfection, this is the most difficult work of all. We are often our own harshest critics, our own most merciless judges. When we make a mistake, when we fail, or when we are rejected, the inner voice of the critic can be relentless, replaying our shortcomings on an endless loop. The practice of self-compassion is the intentional cultivation of a different inner voice, a voice of warmth, encouragement, and unconditional acceptance. It is the practice of learning to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we would offer to a dear friend who was suffering. We can practice this formally. You can sit quietly and gently bring to mind a situation where you feel you have failed, a mistake you regret, a part of yourself you feel ashamed of. Allow yourself to feel the familiar sting of that pain, the heat of shame, or the chill of regret. Now, instead of doing what you normally do, which is to either push the feeling away or to launch into a spiral of self-criticism, try something new. Place a hand gently on your heart, a gesture of physical warmth and comfort, and offer yourself some phrases of self-compassion. You might use the framework developed by the psychologist Kristin Neff. First, acknowledge the pain with mindfulness. This is a moment of suffering. Second, recognize your shared humanity. Suffering is a part of life. Everyone feels this way sometimes. Third, offer yourself active kindness. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion that I need. This is not about letting yourself off the hook or wallowing in self-pity. It is about providing yourself with the secure emotional foundation necessary to learn from your mistakes. Shame paralyzes us. Compassion gives us the resilience to get back up and try again. When we are reeling from the pain of a person leaving us, self-compassion is the medicine that allows us to soothe our own aching heart, to reassure ourselves that our worth is not dependent on another's approval, and to find the strength to heal and move forward. As we cultivate this compassionate heart, we begin to touch upon one of the most inspiring ideals in all of Buddhist thought, the ideal of the Bodhisattva. In the Mahayana tradition, a Bodhisattva is a great being who, on the verge of attaining final enlightenment, makes a courageous vow. They choose to postpone their own final peace and voluntarily remain in the world of birth and death, out of a deep and overwhelming compassion, in order to help all other beings find liberation from suffering. The ultimate embodiment of this compassionate ideal is the figure of Avalokiteshvara, a name that means the one who perceives the sounds or the cries of the world. There is a powerful origin myth that tells his story. Avalokiteshvara, filled with love for all beings, looked down from his celestial realm and saw the immense, unrelenting suffering of the world. He saw the wars, the famine, the sickness, the heartbreak, the loneliness, and his heart broke. He wept with such profound empathy that his tears formed a vast lake. Determined to help, he began his work. But for every being he saved, he saw thousands more fall into suffering. The task was so immense, so overwhelming, that his head exploded into 1,000 pieces from the sheer strain and despair. The Buddha Amitabha, seeing his plight, came to his aid. He gathered the shattered fragments and reassembled them, not into one head, but into 11, so that Avalokiteshvara could look in all directions at once and perceive suffering everywhere. He then gave him 1,000 arms, so that he could reach out and offer aid to all who needed it. And in the palm of each of the 1,000 hands, he placed an eye. This beautiful imagery represents the union of compassion and wisdom. The hand is the symbol of skillful, active help, while the eye is the symbol of the profound wisdom that knows how and when to act. This is the nature of true compassion. It is not a passive, sentimental feeling. It is love in action. It is the courage to not turn away from the pain of the world, but to turn towards it with a wise and helping hand. Avalokiteshvara represents the enlightened, compassionate potential that lies dormant within each of our own hearts. Compassion, then, is the trembling of the heart that moves us to act. It works hand in hand with loving kindness. Metta is the wish for all beings to find the causes of happiness. Karuna is the wish for all beings to be free from the causes of suffering. They are the two great wings of love that allow the heart to soar. But as the story of Avalokiteshvara shows, an open and compassionate heart can be vulnerable. When we open ourselves to the pain of the world, there is a real danger of being overwhelmed, of being crushed by the sheer scale of it all, leading to a state of burnout or despair. So, how do we keep our compassionate hearts open and resilient without being drowned in a sea of sorrow? How do we balance our engagement with the world's pain with a sense of inner strength and joy? The wisdom of the path teaches that love and compassion need a crucial balancing factor, a quality that allows us to find joy in the midst of it all, a quality that protects us from envy and despair. This brings us to the third of the four divine abodes, the sublime and often neglected practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. We have walked the path of the open heart, learning to meet the world with the boundless warmth of loving kindness, metta, and the tender trembling of compassion, karuna. We have trained our hearts to wish happiness for all beings, and to tremble in the face of their suffering, wishing for it to be eased. But there is a third essential quality of a liberated heart, one that is often overlooked, yet is crucial for creating a truly resilient and joyful mind. This is our heart's response to the sight of happiness, success, and good fortune in others. This quality, the third of the four divine abodes, is called mudita. It can be translated as sympathetic or appreciative joy. It is the sublime and generous ability to rejoice in the happiness of others, to feel genuinely happy when they succeed. Mudita is the direct and powerful antidote to the poisons of envy, jealousy, and comparison, the very states of mind that create so much of our secret suffering in a competitive and interconnected world. At the root of jealousy and envy lies a deep and painful illusion, a core belief that happiness is a limited resource. We operate from a mindset of scarcity. We imagine there is a finite pie of happiness, success, and love in the world. If someone else gets a large slice, that means there is less for us. When we see a friend get the job we wanted, a sibling receive praise, or an ex-partner find a new and happy relationship, that scarcity mindset is triggered. Their gain feels, on a visceral level, like our loss. This creates a painful contraction in the heart, a bitter taste of resentment. We may offer congratulations with our lips, but our heart feels a pang of injustice. This is the prison of comparison, a state of mind where our own well-being is constantly measured against the perceived successes of others. Social media has become a powerful engine for this kind of suffering, as we are relentlessly exposed to the curated highlight reels of other people's lives, which can fuel our own quiet despair and sense of inadequacy. Mudita is the radical act of breaking free from this prison. It is the cultivation of an abundance mindset. It is the profound recognition that joy is not a finite commodity. Happiness is not a zero-sum game. The success of another person does not diminish our own potential for happiness in any way. Think of a single candle burning in a dark room. If that one candle is used to light another, does its own flame diminish? No, it remains just as bright. But the total amount of light in the room has now doubled. Joy works in exactly the same way. To rejoice in the happiness of another is to add to the total sum of happiness in the world, a sum in which we ourselves can then share. It is an expansive, joyful, and liberating state of mind. It is the ability to see a friend's vacation photos and feel a genuine flicker of happiness for them, to hear of a colleague's success and feel a sense of appreciation for their hard work, to see a happy couple and feel a warmth in our own heart. Like the other divine abodes, mudita can be cultivated through a formal meditation practice. It follows a similar structure, beginning with what is easy and gradually expanding to what is more challenging. To begin, you can sit in a comfortable posture and bring to mind a person whose happiness and good fortune are very easy for you to celebrate. Perhaps it is a beloved child who has just learned to ride a bicycle, their face beaming with pride and joy, or a dear friend who has just achieved a lifelong dream. Picture them vividly in your mind. See their smile, feel their happiness, and instead of letting that moment pass by, consciously savor it. Connect with the feeling of joy that arises in your own heart in response to theirs. You can then support this feeling with phrases offered silently. I am so happy for you. I rejoice in your good fortune. May your joy and happiness continue. May your good fortune not fade. Feel your own heart expand as you share in their delight, without any sense of wanting it for yourself. After practicing with someone close to you, you can then expand the circle to a neutral person. Perhaps you read in the news about a stranger who has done something wonderful, or you see a family laughing together in a park. Instead of just registering the information and moving on, you can pause for a moment and consciously practice mudita. Acknowledge their happiness and offer them your silent good wishes. This trains the mind to find and celebrate joy wherever it appears, breaking down the walls of indifference that so often separate us from the world. The most advanced, and often most healing, application of this practice is to try and extend it to a person you might consider a rival, or even to someone whose happiness feels painful to you. This is where the practice gets to the root of our suffering. When we learn that an ex-partner, someone who has caused us pain, has found a new and loving relationship, the ego's knee-jerk reaction is often one of bitterness, comparison, or a feeling of being replaced. Our pain tells us that their happiness is an insult to our suffering. The courageous practice of mudita invites us to see it differently. It asks us to see that person, first and foremost, as a being who, just like us, simply wants to be happy. In finding a new relationship, they have found a measure of that happiness. And so, as a profound act of letting go and of freeing our own heart, we can try to offer the thought, you have found some happiness. May that happiness be stable. May you be well. This is not about denying our own pain or grief. That must be held with compassion, but it is about refusing to add the secondary and far more toxic layer of suffering that is envy. It is a declaration of our own inner freedom. There is a simple and beautiful parable that illustrates the abundant nature of joy. Imagine a father who has one beloved son. His heart is completely full of love for this child. Then, a second son is born. Does the father now have to take the love he had for the first son and divide it in two, giving only half to each? Of course not. A parent's heart does not divide its love. It multiplies it. The heart simply expands to hold the love for both. Mudita teaches us that joy operates on this same principle of abundance. It is not a limited pie to be fought over. It is a fire that grows brighter as it is shared. The practice of mudita is also the essential balancing factor for compassion. If we only focus on the world's suffering, on karuna, we risk becoming overwhelmed and burning out. We must train our minds to be equally sensitive to the world's joy, its beauty, its moments of success and grace. Celebrating the good fortune of others refills our own well of energy and prevents our compassionate hearts from becoming heavy with sorrow. It keeps our practice balanced and joyful. Together, Loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy form a powerful trinity of the open and engaged heart. They are our skillful, active responses to the happiness and suffering we encounter in ourselves and in others. They are radiant and beautiful qualities. But for them to become truly unshakable, to remain stable when we are the ones being tossed about by the waves of our own personal gain and loss, praise and blame, they need to rest upon a vast and stable foundation. They need a quality of profound balance and inner peace that is not swayed by the changing winds of fortune. This brings us to the fourth and final divine abode, the crowning achievement of the trained heart, the great balancing force of upekkha, or equanimity. We have explored the radiant, active qualities of the open heart. We have learned to meet the world with the warmth of loving kindness, the trembling of compassion, and the celebratory delight of sympathetic joy. These are the beautiful flowers in the garden of the mind, the active expressions of a heart that is engaged with life. But for these flowers to grow strong and not be washed away by the inevitable storms of life, they must be rooted in a deep, stable, and nourishing soil. This soil, this vast and unshakable foundation, is the fourth and final of the divine abodes. It is the crowning quality of a liberated mind, the great balancing force that holds all the others in a perfect, harmonious embrace. This is upekkha, or equanimity. Of all the divine abodes, equanimity is perhaps the most subtle and most easily misunderstood. We may hear the word and imagine a state of cold indifference, of detached apathy, of emotional flatness. We might picture a person who is aloof and uncaring, who has suppressed their feelings to protect themselves from pain. But this is the very opposite of true upekkha. Indifference comes from a heart that has been closed down out of fear. Equanimity is born from a heart that has become so vast, so open, and so fearless that it is no longer shaken by the winds of change. It is not a lack of feeling, but a profound balance of mind that is capable of feeling everything without being thrown off center. It is the union of deep love and profound wisdom. It is the ability to keep your heart open to the totality of life, its beauty and its pain, its pleasure and its sorrow, without losing your inner peace. It is the quiet, unwavering center of the spinning wheel of existence. The true test of our equanimity comes as we navigate our daily lives, where we are constantly being buffeted by what the Buddha called the 8 worldly winds. These are 4 pairs of opposites that are an unavoidable part of the human experience, and they have the power to throw an untrained mind into chaos. The first pair is pleasure and pain. Our entire biological and psychological conditioning is based on grasping at pleasure and pushing away pain. We spend our lives chasing pleasant experiences and fleeing from unpleasant ones. Equanimity is the ability to experience both pleasure and pain without this desperate push and pull. When a pleasant feeling arises, we can enjoy it fully, but without clinging to it, knowing that it is impermanent. When a painful feeling arises, we can allow it to be there without aversion or panic, knowing that it too will pass. The second pair is gain and loss. This refers not just to material possessions, but to everything we identify with: our status, our health, our youth, and, most powerfully, our relationships. When we experience a gain, a promotion at work, a new relationship, our ego inflates. We feel successful and important. When we experience a loss, a job redundancy, a financial setback, or the departure of a loved one, our ego is crushed. we feel like a failure, diminished, and defeated. Equanimity sees both gain and loss as a natural part of the flow of life. It understands through right view that all things arise due to conditions, and they cease when those conditions change. There is no permanent owner to gain or lose anything. This allows us to receive abundance with gratitude, but without arrogance, and to face loss with grace and without despair. The third pair is praise and blame. Our sense of self-worth is so often dependent on the opinions of others. When someone praises us, we feel validated and happy. When someone criticizes or blames us, we feel hurt, defensive, and angry. Our inner peace becomes a puppet, and the words of others pull the strings. Equanimity unties these strings. It finds its sense of worth and stability from within, from the integrity of living the path. It can hear praise without becoming conceited, and it can hear blame without being shattered, recognizing that both are simply the fleeting opinions of other conditioned beings. The final pair is fame and disrepute. This is praise and blame on a grand social scale. To have a good reputation, to be known and admired, feels wonderful. To have a bad reputation, to be the subject of gossip and ill will, is deeply painful. Equanimity is the quality of mind that remains unmoved by public opinion. It knows that fame is fickle, and that a reputation is just a collection of stories in other people's minds. Stories that are almost always incomplete and inaccurate. The person with equanimity is content to live in alignment with their own values, regardless of whether the world applauds or condemns them. They are free from the exhausting burden of managing their public image. There are two powerful traditional images that help us to understand the feeling of this unshakable mental balance. The first is that of a great, solid mountain. Imagine a mountain, ancient and majestic, its peak reaching into the clouds. Storms may come and go, violent winds may howl, torrential rains may beat against its slopes, and lightning may flash in the sky. But the mountain remains utterly still, unmoved, majestic in its silent presence. It does not fight the storm, it simply allows it to pass. The Buddha said that just as a solid mountain is not shaken by the wind, so too the wise are not swayed by praise or blame, gain or loss. Our awareness can become like this mountain, a vast and silent presence that can hold all the passing storms of life without being disturbed. The second image is that of the deep ocean. The surface of the ocean can be a place of immense turmoil. Hurricanes can whip up terrifying waves, creating chaos and destruction. But if you were to dive deep beneath the surface, hundreds of feet down, you would find a place of profound stillness. The water is calm, silent, and untouched by the fury raging far above. The mind that has cultivated equanimity has access to this inner depth. The surface of our life may be turbulent, with challenges and difficulties, but we can learn to rest in the deep, silent calm of our own aware presence, a place of peace that is always available, no matter the external conditions. It is in our relationships that the power of equanimity reveals its most liberating and beautiful potential. It is the quality that allows us to love fully, without the poison of attachment. With equanimity, our love for another person is no longer conditional on how they make us feel. We can offer them loving kindness, metta, wishing for their happiness. We can feel deep compassion for them, karuna, when they are in pain. We can rejoice in their successes, mudita, without a trace of envy. And we can do all of this from a place of profound inner balance, because our own fundamental well-being is not dependent on them. This is the ultimate antidote to codependence. We no longer need the other person to be a certain way, to say certain things, or to stay with us forever. in order for us to feel whole and okay. Our wholeness comes from within, from the refuge of our own practice. This frees them from the immense burden of being responsible for our happiness, and it frees us from the constant anxiety of trying to control them and the relationship's outcome. When a relationship ends, a person who has cultivated equanimity still feels pain. They are not a stone. The feeling aggregate, the Vedana of sadness and loss, still arises, but they do not add the second and far more painful layer of suffering. There is no panic, no sense of personal annihilation, no feeling that their world has ended. There is a spaciousness around the pain. They can hold their own grief with a balanced and tender compassion, like a mother holding a crying child. They have a deep, abiding trust in the impersonal laws of impermanence and dependent origination. They know that this too shall pass. They can genuinely wish the other person well, even through their own tears, because their love was not based on possession. This is the supreme freedom in the realm of the heart, the ability to love unconditionally and to let go with grace. These four divine abodes, loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, are the four chambers of a fully awakened heart. Metta is the warmth that wishes well for all. Karuna is the tender response to all who suffer. Mudita is the joyful celebration of all who are happy. And Upekkha is the vast, peaceful space of wisdom that holds it all in a perfect, unshakable balance. Cultivating these four qualities is like building a beautiful, indestructible home inside yourself. No matter what storms may rage in the external world, no matter who may come or go from your life, you always have this safe refuge to which you can return. To know these states of mind, to cultivate them in formal meditation, is a profound achievement. But the path is not about creating a peaceful bubble that we only inhabit for a short period each day. The ultimate goal is to bring this wisdom, this kindness, this compassion, this joy, and this unshakable balance out of the quiet of the meditation hall and into the messy, complicated, and beautiful reality of our everyday lives. So, how do we transform our daily actions, our conversations at work, our interactions with our family, our moments of frustration, and our moments of delight into a living, breathing practice of this wisdom? This is the great art of integrating the path, of learning to walk through the world as a truly awakened human being. The journey we have undertaken so far has led us inward to the cultivation of a mind that is clear and a heart that is open. We have learned to sit on the meditation cushion and develop wisdom, kindness, compassion, joy, and a profound, unshakable equanimity. We have built, in essence, a beautiful and spacious inner refuge, a home for the heart that is safe from the storms of life. But the purpose of building such a refuge is not to hide away from the world. The goal is not to become a master of the meditation cushion, but to become a fully alive, wise, and compassionate human being in the midst of our ordinary lives. The ultimate test of our practice, and its greatest fruit, is our ability to carry the qualities we cultivate in silence out into the noisy, messy, and often challenging world of our daily existence. The final stage of the path is the seamless integration of our practice, the art of transforming every moment of our day into an opportunity for awakening. A great misconception is that spiritual practice is something separate from our normal life, something we do for 20 or 30 minutes in the morning before the real day begins. But the wisdom of the path teaches that any moment we are breathing is a moment we can be practicing. The art lies in weaving mindfulness into the very fabric of the mundane. A wonderful teaching on this comes from the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. He was once asked by a student how to practice mindfulness in daily life. He answered by talking about washing the dishes. He explained that if you are standing at the sink, washing the dishes, but your mind is thinking about the cup of tea you will drink afterwards, or the dessert you will enjoy, then you are not truly washing the dishes. You are robbing yourself of the life that is happening in that moment. You are washing the dishes of the future, not the dishes of the present. But, he said, if you can stand at the sink and be fully present for the act of washing, if you can feel the warmth of the water on your hands, see the iridescent bubbles of the soap, hear the sound of the porcelain, and be aware of your breathing, then you are truly alive. In that moment, the act of washing the dishes becomes a sacred act, a meditation. The purpose of washing the dishes is not to get clean dishes. The purpose of washing the dishes is to wash the dishes. This profound principle can be applied to any activity. When you are walking from your car to your office, you can feel the sensation of your feet making contact with the pavement with each step. This is walking. Meditation. When you are drinking a cup of coffee, instead of being lost in a swirl of anxious thoughts, you can bring your full attention to the warmth of the cup, the rich aroma, the complex taste on your tongue. When you are driving, instead of succumbing to impatience and road rage, you can use the red light as a bell of mindfulness, a reminder to come back to your breath, to relax your grip on the steering wheel, and to simply be present. These mundane moments, which we so often dismiss as wasted time or chores to get through, are in fact golden opportunities. They are the training ground where we can transform our life from a series of tasks to be completed into a series of moments to be lived. Nowhere is this integration more crucial or more healing than in our communication with others. Our interactions, especially with those closest to us, are often where our unwholesome habits are most deeply entrenched. The practice of integration asks us to bring mindfulness directly into our conversations. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through the practice of deep listening. Normally, when we listen to another person, we are not truly listening at all. We are hearing their words, but our mind is busy formulating our rebuttal, preparing our own story, judging what they are saying, or waiting for our turn to speak. Deep listening is the practice of setting aside our own agenda entirely. Our sole purpose is to offer the other person the incredible gift of our full, non-judgmental presence, to provide a space where they can feel safe enough to empty their heart. We listen not just to their words, but to the feelings behind the words. We listen with our whole being. This simple act can dissolve conflict and create a profound sense of connection and trust. Alongside deep listening is the practice of loving speech, which is right speech in action. This is the art of expressing our own truth with maximum kindness and minimum harm. When we are hurt or in disagreement, our habit is often to use words as weapons, to blame, to accuse, to make the other person wrong. Loving speech invites us to pause and to speak from a place of vulnerability and wisdom rather than reactivity. We learn to use I statements, like "I feel hurt when this happens," which is an honest expression of our own feeling, instead of accusatory you statements, like "You always make me feel this way," which only creates defensiveness. We learn to ask ourselves before we speak, is what I am about to say true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is this the right time? This mindful communication transforms our relationships from battlegrounds into sanctuaries. Finally, we can integrate our wisdom by changing the very way we perceive other people. The teachings of karma and dependent origination are not just abstract philosophical ideas. They are practical lenses through which to view the world. When we encounter someone who is acting in a difficult, rude, or unkind way, our habitual mind immediately slaps a label on them. He is a jerk, or she is an angry person. This labeling solidifies them into a fixed entity and solidifies our negative reaction to them. The practice of wise perception invites us to pause and look more deeply. Instead of reacting to the behavior, we can ask, with genuine curiosity and compassion, what conditions have led this person to act this way? What suffering might they be experiencing that is causing them to speak or act with such hostility? What is it like to be them right now? This does not mean we condone or accept harmful behavior, but it shifts our internal response from anger to compassion. We see their action not as a personal attack, but as an expression of their own suffering. This depersonalizes the interaction and opens our own heart. As we begin to infuse our daily lives with this quality of mindful presence and wise perception, something remarkable begins to happen. The world, which may have seemed gray and routine, begins to reveal its hidden beauty. We start to notice the small wonders we previously overlooked: the taste of our food, the color of the sky, the kindness in a stranger's eyes. By being fully present for our lives, we start to truly appreciate them. This growing appreciation, this heartfelt recognition of the good that is already here and the good that we have been given, is the natural blossoming of one of the most healing and joyful states of mind there is. It is the quality of gratitude. As we learn to infuse our daily lives with mindful presence, we begin to see the world with new eyes. We wake up from the trance of our own thoughts and start to notice what is actually here, in the vivid, unrepeatable reality of this very moment. This awakening to the present is the fertile ground from which one of the most healing and joyful qualities of the heart naturally blossoms. This quality is gratitude. Gratitude, in this deep sense, is not merely the polite recitation of thank you. It is a profound state of the heart, an active and joyful recognition of the goodness, the grace, and the unearned gifts that fill our lives. It is a conscious practice of shifting our attention away from the mind's default setting, its ingrained negativity bias. The mind, for evolutionary reasons, is like Velcro for negative experiences and like Teflon for positive ones. It is constantly scanning for what is wrong, what is missing, what is threatening. Gratitude is the intentional retraining of that attention. It is the practice of actively looking for, acknowledging, and savoring what is good. The power of this practice lies in its ability to fundamentally reframe our entire experience of life. It moves us from a narrative of lack to a narrative of abundance. The ungrateful mind is forever focused on what it does not have. The grateful heart rejoices in what it does have. And these two states of mind, gratitude and resentment, are mutually exclusive. It is impossible in the same moment to feel genuine, heartfelt gratitude and to feel the bitterness of envy or the sting of self-pity. By consciously cultivating gratitude, we actively displace these painful and contractive emotions, creating more space in our hearts for peace and contentment. There is a timeless story that illustrates this shift in perspective perfectly. A man was walking down the road, complaining bitterly to himself about his poverty, his sole possession in the world being a single, worn-out pair of shoes. He lamented his bad fortune, full of self-pity. Then he turned a corner and saw another man sitting by the side of the road, a man who had no feet. In that instant, his perspective shattered. He was no longer a poor man who had only one pair of shoes. He was an incredibly rich man who had been blessed with 2 healthy feet. Nothing in his external reality had changed, but by seeing his situation in a new context, his inner world was completely transformed from one of lack to one of immense gratitude. This is the power that is available to us at any moment. The practice of cultivating gratitude can begin with a simple, yet profoundly effective, daily exercise. At the end of each day, perhaps before you go to sleep, take a few moments with a notebook to create a gratitude journal. The task is to write down 3 to 5 specific things from your day for which you are genuinely grateful. They do not need to be grand or monumental events. In fact, the practice is often more powerful when we focus on the small, ordinary gifts we so often overlook. Perhaps it was the warmth of the sun on your face during your walk to work, the taste of your first cup of tea in the morning, a kind word from a stranger, a moment of shared laughter with a colleague, the simple fact that your body is breathing, that your heart is beating, all on its own. By consciously scanning our day for these moments of grace, we begin to retrain our brain. We teach it to look for what is good, to notice the countless small blessings that are always present, but are usually rendered invisible by our distracted, problem-seeking minds. We can extend this practice to a general appreciation for the things we take for granted. Gratitude for the eyes that allow us to see the colors of a sunset, for the ears that allow us to hear music, for the legs that carry us through the world. Gratitude for the simple miracles of having clean water to drink, enough food to eat, and a roof over our head, conditions that are not a given for so many people on this earth. It may seem paradoxical, but it is in the face of loss and pain that the practice of gratitude performs its most profound and healing work. When a cherished relationship ends, the mind's powerful habit is to focus exclusively on the empty space, on the pain of the ending, on the void that has been left behind. The story becomes one of pure loss. This is a heavy, painful, and disempowering narrative. The practice of gratitude offers a courageous and liberating alternative. It does not ask us to deny or suppress the very real pain of the loss. The sadness is allowed to be there, held in compassion, but it invites us to widen our perspective, to turn our attention not just to the fact that the relationship ended, but to the incredible miracle that it ever happened at all. Can you, even in the midst of your grief, find a space in your heart for gratitude? Gratitude for the simple gift of having known that person, of having had their unique, unrepeatable presence in your life for the time that you did. Can you feel gratitude for the moments of joy you shared, for the laughter, for the support you received during a difficult time? Can you even feel gratitude for the lessons you learned, especially the painful ones, the lessons that have made you stronger, wiser, and more compassionate? To practice in this way is to fundamentally change the story. The narrative shifts from, "I have lost something precious," to, "I was given something precious, and I am so grateful for the time I had it." This does not erase the sadness, but it places that sadness in a much larger, more meaningful context. It allows us to honor our past without being imprisoned by it. It allows us to hold the memory of the person not with bitterness or regret, but with a sense of warmth and appreciation for the gift they were in our life. It is the alchemy that transforms the lead of grief into the gold of a grateful heart. This practice of gratitude, applied to our present moments and our past memories, transforms our relationship with life. It fills the heart with a sense of richness, abundance, and wonder. And yet, even with a heart full of gratitude, there will be moments of quiet. There will be times when the absence of others is keenly felt. There will be evenings when we sit alone with ourselves, and the feeling of solitude arises. Our society often teaches us to fear this solitude, to see loneliness as a problem to be solved, a failure to be remedied by finding a new distraction or a new connection. But what if this experience of being alone is not a problem, but an opportunity? What if learning to be with ourselves, to find a sense of refuge and peace in our own company, is the next essential step on the path to an unshakable inner freedom? This brings us to face one of the great challenges and one of the greatest opportunities of the human heart, the experience of being alone. The practice of gratitude opens our eyes to the immense richness of our lives, allowing us to see the world not as a place of lack, but as a place of profound and constant blessing. It fills the heart with an appreciation for what is and for what has been. And yet, even with a heart softened by gratitude, there will be moments of quiet. There will be evenings when the house is still, a conversation ends, or a memory arises, and we are met with the undeniable feeling of our own solitude. In these moments, a familiar visitor may arrive, a guest that our culture has taught us to fear and to flee from. This visitor is the feeling of loneliness. We have been conditioned to see loneliness as a sign of failure, a social disease, a testament to our own inadequacy or unlovability. And so, the moment we feel its slightest pang, our instinct is to run, to numb ourselves, to find any distraction that will silence its uncomfortable whisper. But the wisdom of the path invites us to consider a radical alternative. What if loneliness is not a problem to be solved, but a message to be heard? What if it is not a sign of our brokenness, but a deep and primal summons from our own heart, calling us to finally come home to ourselves? To understand this invitation, we must first look honestly at our habits of escape. We live in an age that has perfected the art of distraction, offering us an infinite buffet of spiritual anesthetics. Observe your own mind. The moment a feeling of emptiness or solitude arises, where does your hand reach? For most of us, it reaches for our phone. We dive into the endless scroll of social media, a curated stream of other people's connections and manufactured happiness, which often only serves to amplify our own sense of lack. We lose ourselves in the passive consumption of movies and television series, letting the noise of other people's stories drown out the quiet of our own. We fill the silence with podcasts, with music, with compulsive texting, with anything that will keep us from having to sit in the quiet company of our own being. We seek a new romantic partner, not out of a genuine readiness to connect, but out of a desperate need to have someone, anyone, to fill the void. These strategies work, but only for a moment. They are like taking a painkiller for a deep wound. They numb the surface-level discomfort, but they do nothing to heal the underlying injury. And worse, they prevent us from even looking at the wound to see what kind of care it truly needs. By constantly running from our loneliness, we give it a terrifying power. Like a monster in a child's closet, it grows more fearsome in the darkness of our avoidance. The practice of mindfulness offers a path of profound courage. It asks us to do the very thing we fear the most. It asks us to stop running. The next time the visitor of loneliness arrives at your door, try a radical experiment. Instead of immediately reaching for a distraction, just for a few moments, turn towards it. Find a quiet place to sit, or even just pause where you are. Close your eyes, and with as much kindness as you can muster, simply allow the feeling to be there. You can name it softly in your mind. Loneliness is present. This act of naming is not an affirmation of a solid identity, I am lonely, but a recognition of a passing mental and emotional weather pattern. It creates a space between you and the feeling. Then, bring a gentle, scientific curiosity to the experience. Where do you feel this loneliness in your body? Is it a hollow ache in the center of your chest? A tightness in your throat that makes it hard to swallow? A feeling of coldness or emptiness in your stomach? Explore the raw physical sensations of the emotion without getting entangled in the story that your mind wants to weave around it. The mind will want to tell you a story, a tragic epic of poor me, filled with memories of past rejections and fears of a future spent alone. See if you can let the story go, just for a moment, and stay with the simple, direct, physical reality of the feeling. When you do this, something extraordinary begins to happen. By meeting the feeling with this kind and steady awareness, you rob it of its monstrous power. You learn, in your own body, that it is just a pattern of energy. It may be uncomfortable, but it is not solid. It is not permanent, and it is not going to kill you. You are discovering that you are bigger than your loneliness. You are the vast, open space of awareness in which the cloud of loneliness is allowed to arise, to manifest for a time, and to eventually pass away. You learn that you can survive your own feelings. This is a profound realization of inner strength. It is the first step in dismantling the fear that has kept you running for so long. You begin to understand that the frantic search for another person to fill the void is a futile one. It is like trying to patch a hole in the hull of a ship with a photograph of a patch. The real work must be done from within. No other human being, no matter how wonderful, can be the ultimate source of our own peace. To place that burden on another person is not love. It is a recipe for suffering for both of you. So, if the answer is not found in another person, where is it found? The Buddhist tradition offers a clear and profound answer. It says that we must learn to take refuge. A refuge is a place of safety, a sanctuary from the storm. But this is not a physical place. It is an inner orientation of the heart and mind. The tradition speaks of taking refuge in the three jewels, or the triple gem. The first jewel is the Buddha. This does not mean praying to a historical man who lived 2,600 years ago. To take refuge in the Buddha is to take refuge in the quality of Buddhahood itself, the innate potential for wisdom, clarity, and peace that exists within every single one of us. It is the recognition that Siddhartha Gautama was a human being who woke up from the dream of suffering, and because he could do it, we also have that capacity within us. It is having faith not in an external savior, but in the luminous, unshakable Buddha nature at the very core of our own being. When we feel lost or alone, we can turn inward and take refuge in this innate goodness, trusting that we have the resources within us to meet the moment with wisdom. The second jewel is the Dharma. To take refuge in the Dharma is to take refuge in the truth itself, in the way things are. It is trusting the great laws of nature that we have been exploring: impermanence, karma, dependent origination, and not self. When our personal world feels like it is falling apart, when we feel adrift and confused, we can lean on the Dharma as an unwavering guide. We can trust that if we live in harmony with these laws, if we practice kindness, let go of clinging, and cultivate our minds, we will find our way to peace. The Dharma is the reliable map that shows us the path out of the forest of suffering. To trust the Dharma is to trust that reality, when seen clearly, is its own support. The third jewel is the Sangha. This word refers to the community of fellow practitioners. On one level, this is the global and historical community of all those who have walked this path, the stream of wise and compassionate beings throughout the ages. But on a more practical level, it is the community of our friends and teachers on the path right now. This is the crucial recognition that while our ultimate refuge is internal, we do not have to walk the path alone. To take refuge in the Sangha is to connect with others not from a place of neediness or to cure our loneliness, but on the basis of a shared commitment to waking up. These are our Kalyana Mitta, our spiritual friends. We support each other inspire each other, and reflect the truth to each other. This kind of friendship is not based on what we can get, but on what we can cultivate together. There is a wonderful story of a turtle who was being harassed by a jackal on a riverbank. The jackal would try to bite the turtle's head or its legs, but every time the jackal approached, the turtle would simply withdraw its head, its four legs, and its tail deep inside the safety of its own hard shell. The jackal, unable to find anything to bite, would eventually give up and leave. The Buddha used this story as a metaphor for our practice. The jackal represents the temptations and dangers of the world, including the painful feelings of loneliness and despair. The turtle's limbs are our five senses and our wandering mind. The turtle's shell is our inner refuge. When we feel threatened by the pain of solitude, we don't have to fight it or run from it. We can wisely withdraw our attention from the outer world of distraction and the inner world of painful stories, and rest in the safe and solid refuge of our trust in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Our practice becomes our portable sanctuary, a home we can carry with us wherever we go. When we discover that we have this safe and reliable home within ourselves, we are no longer spiritually homeless when another person leaves our life. Our peace is no longer held hostage by their presence or their absence. We are finally, truly, at home in our own being. This deep inner security is what gives us the profound courage and the emotional stability to truly practice the art we have been preparing for all along. This is the great and gentle art of letting go. Having found the stability of an inner refuge, a home within our own heart and mind, we now possess the strength and the courage to engage in one of the most essential and liberating of all spiritual arts. This is the art of letting go. We hear this phrase often in our culture, spoken as simple advice: you just need to let it go. But it is often misunderstood. It can sound like a forceful act of dismissal, like pushing away an unpleasant memory or suppressing a difficult feeling. It can sound like a command to simply forget what has happened. But this is not the nature of true letting go. In the wisdom of the path, letting go is not a single, violent act of will. It is a gentle, gradual process of release. It is not about pushing anything away, but about ceasing to pull things towards us. It is the slow, patient, and compassionate unclenching of a fist that has been desperately grasping onto our pain, our grievances, and our broken dreams. It is the art of allowing things to be as they are and allowing them to follow their natural course of arising and passing away. To practice this art, we must first become aware of what it is we are clinging to so tightly. Primarily, we cling to the past. We remain trapped in the stories of what has been. This clinging to the past takes two main forms. The first is regret. The mind becomes a courtroom where we are both the prosecutor and the defendant, endlessly trying the case of our own past mistakes. We get caught in painful loops of, if only I had been more patient. If only I had said something different. If only I had seen the signs. We believe that by mentally replaying the past, we can somehow change it, but all we do is inflict fresh pain upon ourselves in the present. Letting go of regret is not about pretending we did nothing wrong. It is about looking at our past actions with the clear light of wisdom and the immense warmth of self-compassion. It is understanding that we acted as we did, based on the conditions, the understanding, and the suffering that were present in us at that time. We learn the lesson the experience has to offer, and then we give ourselves the grace to move on, free from the heavy, useless burden of self-recrimination. The second way we cling to the past is through resentment. When we feel we have been wronged by another, especially by someone who has left us, we cling tightly to the story of their transgression. We replay their hurtful words. We remember their inconsiderate actions, and we nurture the fire of our grievance. In a strange way, this story can feel valuable. It gives us a sense of identity as the victim and a sense of righteousness in our anger. But this story is a prison. It chains us to the very person who has hurt us, forcing us to carry their memory with us as a constant source of poison in our own heart. Letting go of resentment is the practice of forgiveness, and it is crucial to understand that forgiveness is not something we do for the other person. It is a gift we give to ourselves. It is not about condoning their harmful behavior or saying that what they did was okay. It is simply the decision that we are no longer willing to suffer because of it. It is the choice to put down the hot coal of hatred so that our own hand may be healed. We do not only cling to the past, we also cling fiercely to the future, specifically to the fantasized future that we believe has been stolen from us. When a relationship ends, we are not just grieving the loss of a person, we are grieving the loss of an entire imagined life. The shared home, the future children, the companionable old age, all of it vanishes in an instant. Our mind then tortures us by constantly comparing our present reality to this beautiful, lost illusion. Letting go of the future is the practice of surrendering our rigid blueprints for how life should be. It is a radical acceptance of the truth of impermanence. It is trusting that even though the future is unknown, we have the inner resources to meet it with wisdom and grace. It is about letting go of our demand that life conforms to our personal script, and instead, learning to appreciate the story that is actually unfolding. There is a traditional story that vividly illustrates the self-imprisoning nature of clinging. In parts of Asia, a common way to trap a monkey is to use a coconut or a gourd. A small hole is drilled in it, just large enough for a monkey to slip its open hand inside. Some rice or a sweet treat is then placed inside the gourd, which is chained to a stake. The monkey, attracted by the bait, will come and put its hand inside to grab the rice. But the hole, while large enough for its open hand, is too small for its closed fist, now full of rice, to be withdrawn. The monkey is now trapped. The hunters can approach at their leisure. All the monkey has to do to escape is to open its hand, release the rice, and pull its hand out. It can be free in an instant, but its desire, its clinging to the prize, is so overpoweringly strong that it cannot let go. It will sacrifice its freedom and often its life for a single handful of rice. We are all, in some way, that monkey. The handful of rice is our resentment, our story of being wronged, our regret over past mistakes, our fantasy of a future that can never be. We cling to these things, believing they have value, believing that they are important, but they are the very things that keep us trapped in the prison of our own suffering. Freedom, the great liberation of the heart, is simply the courage to open our hand and let go. So how do we practice this? How do we open the fist of the mind? It is not done through force. It is a gradual softening. The practice is one of mindfulness and gentle intention. Using mindfulness, we first learn to notice when our mind is clenching. We feel the familiar tightness of resentment, the hollow ache of regret, the sharp sting of a fantasized future. We simply acknowledge it without judgment. Ah, there is clinging. The mind is holding on to that old story again. Then, with our out-breath, we can introduce the intention of release. With each exhalation, we can imagine the fist of the mind loosening just a little bit. We are not forcing the fingers open. We are just relaxing the tension that keeps them closed. We do this again, and again, and again. We may have to let go of the same grievance 1,000 times, and that is okay. Each time we do it, its grip on us weakens just a little more. It is a practice of immense patience, a slow and gentle turning of the heart towards freedom. This art of letting go is a profound act of clearing the space of our own minds. By releasing our tight grip on the ghosts of the past, we are no longer haunted. By releasing our anxious grasp on the illusions of the future, we are no longer tormented. We are emptying our hands and our hearts of all that is not truly here, all that is not truly real. And what are we left with when we have finally let go of what has been and what might be? We are left with the only time that has ever truly existed, the only space where life can actually be lived, where joy can be felt, where peace can be found. We are left with the incredible, luminous, and infinitely precious gift of the present moment. Through the courageous and gentle art of letting go, we begin to unburden ourselves from the immense weight of the past and the future. We open the clenched fist of the mind, releasing the ghosts of regret and resentment, and we relax our anxious grasp on the fantasies of what is to come. Having emptied our hands of all that is not real, of all that is merely a memory or a dream, what are we left with? We are left with the only thing that has ever been truly real. We are left with the stunning, vibrant, and infinitely precious gift of the present moment. All of the teachings, all of the practices, all of the wisdom of the path ultimately converge on this single, simple, and profound point: learning to be fully alive, right here, right now. The past is a ghost. It exists only as a collection of flickering images and fading stories in the memory banks of our mind. It is gone. We cannot change it. We cannot relive it. We cannot return to it. The future is a dream. It exists only as an idea, a projection, a constellation of hopes and fears. It has not yet happened, and the vast majority of what we imagine about it will never come to pass. These two realms, the past and the future, are where the untrained mind spends almost all of its time. We live as phantoms in phantom worlds, and it is in this separation, this fundamental dislocation of mind from body, that all our suffering is amplified. The pain of a loss, for example, is made infinitely worse because our mind is constantly replaying the past, clinging to what has been, or anxiously projecting a lonely future, fearing what is to come. But the body, our physical being, is always, and can only ever be, in the present moment. The great work of our practice is to bring the mind home to the body, to unite them in the here and now. This is, of course, easier said than done. The mind's nature is to wander. It is a restless creature, conditioned by millions of years of evolution to scan for threats and opportunities. When it is not anchored, it will inevitably drift into one of its two favorite destinations. It will drift into the past, the realm of what if and if only. Here, it becomes an archaeologist of its own pain, digging up old grievances, polishing cherished memories until they become painful idols, or endlessly re-examining old mistakes. Or it will drift into the future, the realm of what then and what next. Here, it becomes an anxious fortune teller, spinning out catastrophic scenarios or building elaborate fantasies, both of which pull us away from the simple reality of what is. To live in these mental realms is to be absent from our own life. It is to miss the one and only place where true peace, true joy, and true connection can ever be found. The practice, therefore, is not a complicated one. It is simply the practice of returning. It is the gentle, loving, and persistent act of noticing when the mind has wandered, and kindly escorting it back home to the present moment. To do this, we use anchors. The most reliable and readily available anchor is the breath. The breath is always in the now. So when you notice that you are lost in a memory or caught in a worry, you can simply, gently, shift your attention to the feeling of your own breathing. Feel the sensation of one in-breath. Feel the sensation of one out-breath. In that moment, you are home. You are present. Another powerful anchor is the body itself. The mind can travel to the past or the future, but the body cannot. It is always right here. You can bring your attention to the feeling of your feet on the floor, the pressure of your body on the chair, the temperature of the air on your skin. This act of inhabiting your body instantly pulls your awareness out of the abstract world of thought and grounds it in the tangible reality of the now. And you can use your senses. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, what can I see right now? Notice the play of light on a wall, the intricate pattern in a wood grain. What can I hear? Listen to the sounds around you, the distant traffic, the bird song, the hum of electricity, without labeling them as good or bad. Just hear them. This practice of returning, done hundreds or thousands of times a day, is the essence of a mindful life. Each return is a small victory, a moment of waking up. When we begin to live more and more in the present, we make a startling discovery. The present moment is not empty or boring, as we might have feared. It is, in fact, almost overwhelmingly rich and alive with detail. We begin to taste the full flavor of our food, to see the vibrant colors of the world around us, to truly hear the music we listen to, the beauty of a single flower, the warmth of a conversation with a friend, the deep comfort of a quiet evening. These ordinary moments become extraordinary when we are fully present for them. We realize that peace is not some grand future destination we must struggle to reach. Peace is a possibility that is available in any moment that we are willing to be fully present for it. It is the peace of no longer being at war with what is. It is the joy of simply being here. This transforms our relationships. When we are truly present with another person, we offer them the most precious gift we have, our undivided attention. They feel seen, heard, and valued in a way that is impossible when our mind is elsewhere. And when we are alone, being present allows us to fully experience and befriend our own solitude, transforming it from a source of fear into a source of strength. There is a timeless story about a man who believed that happiness was a rare and mythical bird. He was convinced that he had to find it. So he left his home and spent his entire life traveling the world in search of it. He crossed vast oceans. He climbed the highest mountains. He traversed sun-scorched deserts, always searching, always seeking. He met many people and saw many wonders, but he never found the mythical bird of happiness. Finally, old, tired, and disheartened, he gave up his quest and returned to the small, humble village he had left so many years before. As he sat, weary, in the garden behind his own small house, he heard a sound, a beautiful and unfamiliar bird song. He looked up, and there, nesting in the branches of a tree he himself had planted as a small boy, was the most brilliant, beautiful bird he had ever seen. The bird of happiness had been there all along, waiting for him to come home. The meaning of this story is profound. We so often believe that peace and happiness are somewhere else, in a different place, a different time, with a different person. We spend our lives searching and striving, but the great secret of the spiritual path is that what we are seeking is already here. It is woven into the fabric of this present moment. It is waiting for us, patiently, to stop searching and to finally arrive. As we learn to rest more and more in the home of the present moment, our perception of ourselves and others continues to deepen and transform. We stop seeing people as fixed, solid entities defined by the stories of their past. Instead, By being fully present with them, right here and now, we begin to perceive the living, breathing, dynamic process of their being. We see the constant flux of their thoughts and feelings. This opens the door to a new and far more profound way of relating to one another, a connection that is not based on shared memories or imagined futures, but on the simple, powerful reality of a shared presence. This is the discovery of true connection. As we learn to quiet the mind and rest in the spaciousness of the present moment, a new way of seeing begins to emerge. Our perception of the world, and especially of the people in it, undergoes a profound and liberating transformation. We begin to move beyond the conventional and ultimately fragile models of human connection, and we start to touch upon something far more real, more stable, and more deeply satisfying. This is the discovery of true connection, a way of relating that is not based on need or possession, but on a clear and compassionate recognition of reality itself. Our normal way of connecting with others is almost always based on the illusion of a solid, separate self. An I connects with a you. This connection is often built on a foundation of shared identities. We are both fans of this team. We are both from this city. Shared histories. We went through so much together. Or mutual need fulfillment. You make me feel secure. I make you feel loved. This ego-to-ego model of relationship is the source of immense joy, but it is also inherently unstable. When identities change, when new experiences are not shared, or when one person is no longer able to meet the needs of the other, the foundation crumbles and the connection feels broken. We feel pain because the very premise of our connection was based on the mistaken belief that we are two separate, unchanging entities who can possess one another. The wisdom of the path, particularly the insight into not-self, or anatta, invites us to question this entire model. If there is no solid, separate me, and no solid, separate you, then what is it that is actually connecting? The answer to this question opens the door to a revolutionary new way of understanding ourselves and each other. The teaching of dependent origination gives us the key. It reveals that we do not exist as isolated islands, but as interconnected nodes in a vast web of being. The Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh coined the beautiful term into being to describe this reality. When you look deeply at a flower, you can see the sunshine, the rain cloud, the soil, and the gardener within it. The flower inter is with all these non-flower elements. The same is true for us. You are not just you. In this very body, you carry your parents, your grandparents, and all your ancestors stretching back through time. You are made of the food you have eaten, the water you have drunk, the air you have breathed. Your mind is shaped by the books you have read, the conversations you have had, the kindnesses you have received, and the wounds you have sustained. When you sit with another person, it is not simply two people meeting. It is two entire universes of causes and conditions brushing up against each other. When we begin to see in this way, the hard, sharp line that we draw between self and other begins to soften and dissolve. Their suffering is not entirely separate from our suffering. Their capacity for joy is not entirely separate from our own. This recognition of our profound interbeing is the fertile ground from which true empathy and compassion can grow. It is no longer a matter of feeling for another person from a distance, but of recognizing that, on a very deep level, we are of one another. This insight deepens even further with another profound Mahayana teaching, the teaching of Buddha nature, or Tathaga Tagaba. This is the teaching that within every single sentient being, without exception, there exists an inherent, luminous, and indestructible potential for full awakening. It is like a perfect, brilliant diamond that is hidden within a lump of mud or a seam of pure gold running through worthless ore. The mud of our greed, our hatred, and our ignorance may be very thick. The ore of our conditioned habits and our painful histories may be very hard. But that inner brilliance, that fundamental purity and goodness, is never truly lost. It is always there, waiting to be discovered. To see the Buddha nature in another person is the practice of looking past the mud of their personality, their anger, their fear, or their hurtful behavior, and choosing to see and relate to the diamond within them. It is an act of profound faith and compassion. It is the ability to look at someone who is causing us pain and to recognize, beneath all this suffering and confusion, there is a being who, just like me, has the capacity for perfect wisdom and boundless love. When we learn to see in this way, our interactions are completely transformed. We stop reacting to the surface-level provocations and start responding to the deeper reality of the person in front of us. There is a classic story from the life of the Buddha that perfectly illustrates this principle of true connection. One day, as the Buddha was walking through a village, a very arrogant and angry man came out of his house and began to verbally abuse him. He hurled insults and accusations at the Buddha, trying everything he could to provoke a reaction. The Buddha simply stood there, listening quietly, with an expression of perfect calm and equanimity. He was fully present, but he was not disturbed. When the man finally ran out of energy and insults, he fell silent, confused by the Buddha's lack of response. The Buddha then asked him a gentle question. "My friend," he said, "if you prepare a beautiful gift for someone and you offer it to them, but that person does not accept your gift, to whom does the gift then belong?" The angry man, taken aback, replied, "Well, if they don't accept it, it would still belong to me, of course." The Buddha smiled softly and said, "Exactly so. My friend, you have just offered me a gift of your anger, your insults, and your ill will. I have chosen not to accept it. This is a masterclass in the art of true connection." The man was offering the mud of his suffering. The Buddha, seeing this clearly, refused to pick it up. He did not engage on the level of anger and reactivity, but he also did not dismiss the man. By calling him my friend and offering him a profound teaching, he was relating to the man's deeper potential, his Buddha nature, which was hidden beneath his rage. The Buddha saw the suffering that was causing the anger, and he responded with a wisdom that had the power to heal, rather than a reaction that would only perpetuate the conflict. This is what it means to connect with the diamond, not the mud. It is a connection that preserves our own inner peace, while simultaneously offering the other person the greatest possible chance to find their own. When we learn to connect with others on this deep level of interbeing and shared Buddha nature, our love becomes boundless. It is no longer dependent on the physical presence of the other person, because this connection is based on recognizing a shared, fundamental reality. We can feel it for people who are no longer in our daily lives. We can bring to mind the person who has left us, and instead of just feeling the pain of their absence, we can feel a deep connection to their inherent nature. We can send them our metta, our goodwill, wishing for the diamond of their own Buddha nature to shine forth. Our love is no longer a possessive grip, but a radiant, benevolent wish for their ultimate well-being, wherever they may be. This is a love that transcends coming and going, a love that is not diminished by distance or time. It is a resonance at the very heart of being. This profound shift in perception, from seeing a world of separate, competing selves to recognizing a world of interconnected, luminous beings, is the beautiful culmination of our entire journey of understanding. It is the natural fruit that grows from the soil of seeing impermanence, of understanding karma, of letting go of clinging, and of finding our home in the vast, open space of the present moment. When we can connect in this way, we discover a peace that is no longer fragile or conditional. We are tapping into a source of well-being that cannot be given to us by another, and, crucially, cannot be taken away. This brings us to the final realization of our path, the discovery of an unshakable inner peace that we can carry with us always, a peace that can gracefully weather any storm. We have traveled a long and profound path together. We began with the sharp, familiar pain of a simple question: why do people come and go? This question, born of heartbreak and confusion, became our gateway. It led us down into the very foundations of reality, to the universal truths of impermanence, the intricate web of karma and dependent origination, and the elusive nature of the self. It guided us through the labyrinth of our own minds, revealing the clinging that causes our suffering and the hindrances that cloud our vision. And it has illuminated a clear and noble path forward, a path of wisdom, ethical living, and mental cultivation, leading to the blossoming of a heart filled with kindness, compassion, joy, and a vast, unshakable equanimity. We have arrived at the final vista of this journey of understanding, and from here, we can look back at our original question with new eyes. So, what is the final answer? Will people stop leaving? Will the pain of loss be forever banished? The honest and liberating answer is no. The world will continue to be the world. The law of impermanence will not be suspended for our convenience. The rivers of our lives and the lives of others will continue to flow, to converge for a time, and then to diverge. People will still come, and people will still go. That is the nature of existence. The profound change, the great miracle of this path, is not in the alteration of the world outside, but in the complete transformation of the world within. The promise was never a life without storms. The promise was that we could learn to become masterful sailors with a sturdy ship and a true compass, capable of navigating any weather with courage and grace. Before we began this journey, we were perhaps like a small, rudderless boat, tossed about on the great ocean of life. Our happiness was entirely dependent on the weather. When the sun of praise and pleasure shone upon us, we were joyful. When the winds of blame and the waves of loss crashed against us, we were terrified, capsized by despair. We were at the mercy of conditions outside of our control. But now, it is different. Through the cultivation of wisdom, we have been given a reliable map of the ocean, the Dharma that shows us the nature of the currents. Through the practice of sila, or ethical conduct, we have patched the holes in our vessel and made it strong and seaworthy. And through the training of the mind in mindfulness and concentration, we have learned how to hold the tiller steady, to keep our balance in the midst of the waves. The storms will still arise. The great waves of gain and loss will still roll. But we no longer meet them with panic. We have found our sea legs. We can ride the waves. There is a powerful analogy that captures this inner transformation. Imagine the ocean. On its surface, there can be tremendous turmoil. On a pleasant day, the waves may be playful and sparkling in the sun, representing our moments of joy and excitement. In a squall, the surface becomes grey, choppy, and agitated, like our minds in a state of anxiety and restlessness. And during a great hurricane, the waves can become towering, thunderous walls of water, expressing a terrifying power, much like our experiences of profound grief or rage. The surface is a place of constant change and reactivity, but if you could sink down beneath the surface, deep into the heart of the ocean, you would find a completely different world. As you descend, the light fades to a soft blue, the sounds of the storm become muted, and then disappear entirely. The water becomes colder, denser, and calmer. And when you reach the abyssal depths, thousands of feet below the hurricane, there is a profound, ancient, and absolute stillness. Here, the water is utterly silent and completely unmoved. It is a realm of immense peace, completely untouched by the chaos raging on the surface far above. The human mind has this same potential. The surface of our mind is our everyday consciousness, constantly stirred up by the winds of praise and blame, gain and loss. But through the practice of meditation, of turning inward, we learn to access the depths. We discover that beneath the surface-level turmoil of our thoughts and emotions, there is a place of deep, silent, unshakable peace. This is the peace of our true nature. It is always there, waiting for us. Cultivating the path is the process of learning how to access this deep inner calm, so that even when the surface of our life is stormy, we can rest in the profound stillness of our own awakened awareness. This is the unshakable peace that the world cannot give, and that the world, crucially, cannot take away. This leads us to the ultimate shift in identity that this path makes possible. Before, we identified completely with the passing weather of our experience. When a dark cloud of sadness appeared in the mind, we believed, "I am sad." We became the cloud. When a flash of anger lit up our consciousness, we believed, "I am angry." We became the lightning. We were so fused with the content of our experience that we were constantly being defined and controlled by it. Through this journey of seeing the nature of not-self, we make the most liberating discovery possible. We realize that we are not the cloud, nor the lightning, nor any of the passing weather phenomena. We are the sky. We are the vast, open, luminous space of awareness in which all experiences, all thoughts, all feelings, all sights and sounds arise, manifest for a time, and then naturally dissolve. The sky is not harmed by the storm. It is not stained by the darkest clouds. It is not burned by the fiercest lightning. It simply allows all the weather of life to pass through it, remaining open, spacious, and fundamentally peaceful. To realize this is to be free. People coming and going are like clouds moving through the vast sky of your awareness. The sadness of their departure is a real cloud, with a real color and texture, but you are the sky that holds it, not the cloud itself. The joy of their presence is another, beautiful cloud, and you are the sky that witnesses it, without desperately clinging to it. This is the culmination of the path. You are no longer a fragile leaf, tossed about by every shifting wind. You are the sky itself, vast, clear, and serene, witnessing the great, beautiful, and sometimes painful dance of life with a peaceful and loving heart. This realization is not an end point, but the beginning of a new and truly authentic way of living. It is the discovery of a peace that is not built on the shifting sands of external conditions, but is founded upon the timeless, deathless bedrock of our own awakened nature. Having walked this long path from the initial sting of suffering to the discovery of this inner vastness, let us now gather the wisdom of this journey and reflect upon its core message, carrying its steady light forward into every moment of our lives. Our journey began in a place of quiet pain, with a question that echoes in every human heart. Why do people come and go? We started with the feeling of an empty space, the ache of a connection that has faded into memory. From that single point of suffering, we have traveled far and wide. We have looked deeply into the great, impersonal laws of the universe, seeing our lives as a flowing river of impermanence, governed by the gentle, unyielding currents of karma and dependent origination. We turned the lens of inquiry inward, discovering that the true source of our anguish was not the river itself, but our own desperate attempt to stop its flow, the painful clenching of our own mind in the form of clinging and attachment. And from this diagnosis, we discovered a clear and noble path to healing. We learned to walk the path of ethics, wisdom, and mental training, to cultivate the tools of mindfulness, and to awaken the boundless, beautiful qualities of the heart: loving, kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and a vast, unshakable equanimity. We now return to our original question, but we see it with new eyes, with a new heart. The answer we have found is not the one we might have expected at the beginning. The goal was never to discover a secret magic that could make people stay, or a fortress that could protect us from the pain of loss. The answer to why do people come and go is simply because that is the nature of all conditioned things. The real answer we were seeking was to a much deeper question. How can I find peace in a world where everything and everyone is constantly changing? The core message of this entire journey is this: peace is not an external acquisition, it is an internal realization. It is not found by manipulating the world to fit our desires. It is found by transforming our mind to be in harmony with the world as it is. Peace is the discovery that your own awareness, your own heart, is a refuge far safer and more reliable than any person, place, or situation could ever be. It is the realization that you are not the small boat being tossed by the waves. You are the vast, silent ocean itself, whose depths are undisturbed by any storm on the surface. And so, this journey does not truly end here. It begins. It begins anew in every moment. You now hold the map, and you possess the tools. The path is not in a distant land or a future time. The path is in this very breath. The path is in the choice to meet a difficult moment with mindfulness rather than distraction. It is in the choice to meet a person's anger with compassion rather than with more anger. It is in the choice to feel the pain of your own grief without being consumed by it. It is in the gentle, repeated, courageous act of opening the fist of the mind and letting go. The capacity for freedom is your own birthright. The potential for boundless love is the very nature of your heart. The peace you seek is not separate from you. It is the quiet space between your thoughts, the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, the silent, aware presence that is reading these words right now. The path home is simply the path here. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be free.